Connecting to streaming software. I was like, oh, I'll check my phone and see if it's running on my phone, and then realize it's on Instagram right now. So,
Podcast is focused on the Pistonhead podcast site. Yes, correct.
oh, it says
If you
we're
want to tune in
live.
there, we will also be saving it and posting it on probably on my YouTube channel. And
All right.
good to
Okay.
go.
I think we're good to go. It looks like we're good to go.
Sweet.
All right. Wow. Sorry, guys. I apologize. This is if anybody here has ever been on a podcast or ever done a podcast, it is just a constant uphill battle. So yeah.
Are you able to see the Instagram comments as well?
I can. Yeah, I can see all of them right now. I don't know how big they are. There we go. I made them a little bit bigger. So yeah, it should be live on Twitch for anybody else that's wondering. Pistonhead Productions. So if you guys are Twitch people, go ahead and jump over there. So
somebody said your link didn't work.
Yeah, I think it's because we had to refresh it to this new stream. It's up and running now. If you want to take a second and relink it, go for it. It doesn't matter to me. I can explain to these fine people what's going on. But yeah, so my name's Jacob. I'm with the Pistonhead podcast. Yeah, I've had a YouTube channel with me and a couple of buddies for a long time now. Just car-related stuff, all drifting related. I actually work for Riley Sexsmith of Pro2. I've done work with a bunch of other drivers. I work with a couple of different automotive brands as well. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown on me. If you guys enjoy podcasts, make sure to go back and look at our back catalog. We just finished one with Kevin Wells. We did another one with Ryan Sage, talking about all of the pro-spec stuff, all the changes on that end of things. We've done podcasts with Matt Farah, Matt Field, speaking of the Matts. And then we've done other smaller stuff with smaller creators. We've had guys on from like Haltech, ECU Master. So yeah, make sure to check it out. I think it's available on iTunes, basically anywhere you find podcasts now. I know we're on Spotify, so that's kind of cool.
But, yeah, that's excellent. I'm going to introduce myself, mine as well. I mean, on Instagram, it's pretty obvious. But
yeah, you guys should know.
My name is Josiah Fallaise. I'm the owner of FDF Race Shop, and I design angle kits, I build suspension components, and I drift myself. We have lots of different cars at the shop that I'm constantly working on and developing, and we can go on and talk about all that stuff as well, and what is the next thing that's happening. We've done a lot of expansions in the last couple months, even through the COVID year. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting 2021. It's been a great start so far. I can see some of the questions coming in already. The idea for me doing Pro 2 was that I had already actually paid for the full season last year early, because the goal was to, I built a car, the car was completely done, it was ready to go, and obviously COVID hit. So the problem that COVID was, being in Canada, when you go across the border, there is a 2-week mandatory quarantine when you come back. So with that being the main issue for me, I have 2 kids. I have them on my own, so there's not really an option for me to do that. Plus, I can't run a business from home. So it kind of really it put me out of the realm of possibilities to go. But actually, I was on the last flight that was allowed out of Canada, and I went to Florida anyways. And I kid you not, my parents were on a flight 3 hours later, and they got taken off the plane. They did not take off 3 hours after I had just taken off. So I went to Florida for 3 days. The goal there was to collaborate with my Drift HQ team, who was going to be one of my main sponsors for last year. And they sell a ton of our products. We work together on a lot of things. So I went there to just drift with them for a few days. So I ended up doing that, and I remember the big joke was somebody sneezed from across the track, and it was everyone's yelling, "Oh, COVID, you got COVID," and it was a joke at the time. This was it was a year ago this month. It was in February. So when we were there, it was just a big joke. Obviously, none of us knew what it would have entailed in hindsight, looking at it a year later. But yeah, it shot the whole season. So we ended up running our own event late last year because we were desperate for some competition, and I think everybody was. And the problem is when you get into uh, like you're like, wow, I wish someone would just like, I wish we could just compete. And I wish someone would do it. When you really get down to it, it's not gonna happen unless you do it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of just established that in Ontario for some reason, with everything else going down, somebody just had to do it, and it wasn't going to be anyone else except for us. Like if we wanted to drift, we got to make it happen. If we want to compete, we got to make it happen. So I'm okay with that role. Like it was fine. It was a lot of work, but like I mean, we threw an amazing event for being so last minute and in Canada. I don't think you were there actually,
No, I wasn't.
but I
Um,
know you wanted. I know we talked about it
we,
quite a
we
bit,
we definitely had a
collaborating,
lot
and
of talks about setting up, the live streams and stuff. I
yeah,
think
which didn't happen. But
I was gonna say, I think your mic is rubbing. I think it's picking up your mic that's on your cheek there. It's just rubbing
this
against the
one,
cord. That's all. There you go. Anyways, it's actually funny you mentioned that. Like, if you don't have it, the only way to fix it is basically to do it yourself. Because that's essentially what you did with the ankle kids, right? Like, obviously, I mean, the name's going to come up anyways, but like WiseFab being the big guys on the street, and you saw a need and a want from all these different drivers and different competitors being like, okay, this shit's incredibly expensive. It's breaking constantly. Like, even without my connection to you, I've been pretty outspoken about that company in a couple of ways because I saw some things happen on track that were directly related to fatigue failure of ankle kits, where guys were hitting the wall and they're like, "Oh, this is weird. They just hit the wall." And I'm like, "Well, if you watch the video, his control arm broke before he hit the wall." I'm like, "Well, that shouldn't be happening, right?" And that to me was a fatigue failure in a part, which obviously you saw an opening in the same kind of thing where you knew that there was this want and this need for something. The event being the example before, but the ankle kit being the main thing. And then you jumped on it and was like, okay, well, this is the thing that I'm doing now. This is something that I want and I see an opening for. And I mean, business wise, that is, if you want a successful business, is what you do. You find a problem people have and you find a way to solve it.
sure, there was definitely a pretty much a last minute entry into what I feel like is there. I mean, there's four major brands that are competing for this space in the drift community, and I'm still at the earliest and the youngest company of the four. Like if you want to name them, it's PBM, WiseFab, GK Tech, and FDF. If you're going to recommend anything, those are
Mm-hmm.
could be called the household names, if you will. Specifically speaking about like Nissan chassis, because that's all GK Tech does. But basically, I have I have a very high respect for every company that's making parts. The development process that I go through, I wouldn't say anybody else goes through it because I am the only one that does any of this design work. Where the other the other brands may have teams or they may outsource or they may do things overseas. Whatever they do, it's it's tough, man. Like you try to cover all your bases and you learn from your mistakes. Like if you want to reference that for any basically anything at all, you can use that as a good lesson. You're going to learn from your mistakes. You will make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Mistakes will be made. So it's a matter of like looking at a company and how they adapt constantly. Like are companies going to be selling something that they know isn't working properly? Like for example, I saw a pretty funny video where a guy bought a flexible lamp, and the reason why you buy a flexible lamp is so that you can manipulate the light, move it around, right? That's
Yeah.
basic. Like it's got one use. You had a straight lamp and now you want a flexible lamp,
Yeah.
and the only thing it had to do was hold up the light,
Its own weight.
and so you can move it around, which out of the box it could not do. So this is where you're like, okay, so I bought this light for one reason and one job, and it couldn't do the one job. Does the light turn on? Yes. That's not why I bought it though. So
That's crazy.
when you get that's where you get your difference between the companies, and basically the companies that adapted and changed are the ones that are still around
Mm-hmm.
because they had to go through all of this. correct what they needed to and adapt. And some of them took a very long time to adapt. Some of them make stuff overseas so that they had a production run of 500 units, and they were going to make the change after 500 units were sold. And
which is a problem.
just as an example, that's a big problem for sure. It's a huge problem. So luckily we make everything start to finish in-house. So if we needed to make updates, changes, improvements, whatever it is, generally you're going to see it within like instantly. As soon as a problem arises, you're going to see a change made right away. And this is how we grew and grew quickly, because obviously before we were known for anything, I had these products on my own car. My S13 that I had for 7 years. I sold it 2 years ago, so it would have been 9 now. But so 7 years ago, I was like, I don't have any money, going to school, coming out of high school, going to college. I would like to get more steering angle. I don't have any money to buy anything, but I'm in school for engineering, so like, let's cook something up. Like I know what's going on. So basically I just started modifying parts, and I slowly bought different pieces of equipment. And I mean, you did a tour or a shop tour like 2 or 3 years ago. And so even before that is when I would have been starting out just making stuff for people. So then I would post pictures on Instagram and stuff. And I had a couple thousand followers, maybe. I was a really good welder, so I know a lot of people followed me for that. But once I started getting into like, look at how much angle my car gets and look at how well it seems to perform, whether that was driver or mechanical advantage, I cannot say. It just, because it depends, right? Like drifting is one of those things where if you have a reasonable amount of coordination and enough seat time, you just will be good at it. It's one of those things. It's like, you've got to have the basics of like human coordination requirements, and then if you have those, you just need a bunch of seat time. So, and then sometimes people don't have the minimum requirements, but maybe they compensated with money, like finances, and they got 2, 3, 4 times as much seat time. So then it equals out, right?
Yeah. So money can fix a lot of problems. That's for sure. Money can fix seat time. It can.
For sure. Like I mean, it would fall into any category that has to do with any type of sport ever. Like if you have the time, even if you don't have the skill, you will get the experience. So there's 3 different things basically, and experience can trump skill, because raw talent is a diamond in the rough, and if you do not refine it, it is just a clump of rocks with maybe a nice diamond inside. But if you never get it out, then it's not worth anything. So you're right, like the skill factor and everything plays in. But anyways, that's kind of off topic.
It definitely fits into it, because it fits into it fits also into building of the products, right? Like you need to have some raw skill, and then that raw skill then can create money, which can then help create more products because you can buy more things. Like it's a cycle. Wherever you come in the cycle is up to you. Some people come in with no skill, but they have money, so they can develop that skill and they can get that equipment faster. Okay, look at great example. Look at the Sorensens. That's a family with money. There is no, for anybody who's new to this, I have no problems calling things out the way it is, because that is a family with money. Take it or leave it. Anybody else in that position, we'd be doing the exact same fucking thing. So also, you're allowed 100%. To swear on this. So that's somebody who started off at the money tier, and they use that money to then buy products and buy seat time. First, they bought the products so that they can get the seat time. And then that built their skill, which will then hopefully one day increase money. And then the cycle continues to go. If at any point in time, one of those things is removed, that's when it stops. That's when you stop progressing. So, it goes back to you building this stuff. You had the skill, you then use that skill to then start to make money, which then got more products, right? Which got more equipment to then continue to increase your skill. Because when I was first there, you were doing mostly roll cages and like general fab work. Your big seller at that point in time was hood vents. And then you and I were talking, and I believe you hadn't officially launched the Mantis kit yet, but it was something you had built and you were showing me the designs for it, you were walking me through it, and you're like, this is my next thing. I'm like, holy shit, this is a bold move. Like, you're going after a gigantic company by doing something like this. But then again, that you started to sell those. It became big locally. Like, everybody at Top Drift, it was the talk. Okay, next kit I'm buying is an FDF. And then I don't know where it spread from there when it got into the US market, who you got in the hands to. Like, I remember it getting to Taylor Ray, that being pretty big. I'm sure there's other people that I don't know about or other big YouTubers, but like that then started to take off there. And then the next big milestone that I remember was Drift HQ. And that's when I went, oh shit, like this is it. Like this isn't just a small thing anymore. Like this is going to go big quick. I'm sure I would hope you would know the other milestones in between or other things, but
Yeah, of
that's
course.
my recollection of the timeline. I try not
Yeah,
to
like
stalk
if
you too much. So
yeah, if I went into the U.S. market debut, it would have actually been basically in order to make a sale when you're not well known, you got to do a lot of talking. You got to do a lot of convincing. You got to do a lot of basically selling it for zero profit, or you're actually paying a little bit. So I'm selling these angle kits to guys to test out basically for 500, 600 bucks. And
right,
that's what it's costing me in materials alone to build it.
and that's not even your
So
time, right?
that is not my time.
Yeah,
So I mean, luckily when I first started, I was working full time, uh, designing production machines basically to make blister packs to be specific. And on my weekends, this is what I was doing. So I'm like, yeah, I got to get this kit into other people's hands. I got to get that unbiased opinion out there, and I got to get people talking about how well it works, how different it is. Like we literally came up with structural designs for the arms that were aesthetically pleasing, but like did the job, worked well, and were relatively easy to fabricate. Like you can get pretty crazy, or you can get super simple. Like you can cut it out of a thick piece of steel, or you can do something that's welded together, or you can do a fully billet CNC machine part. And we've
yeah,
entertained each level of manufacturing and in production in all of those avenues where we are learning what benefits come from what, and then aesthetically, how do we like it? I mean, aesthetically is like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's literally like people are buying a product based on a picture. So like you gotta do something with it. Um, so there's aesthetically, and then when you get into uh, I guess I'm off topic again with how I started, but
just
basically
keep
I had to
going.
get these kits. I had to get these kits into people's hands in the U.S. market for as cheap as possible, and I had to do a lot of talking to get it there. So these guys that were getting it, I actually ended up becoming pretty good friends with. That have been running the kits for 4. It depends on the chassis because the
Mhm.
chassis got in. Like S chassis was in quite a while ago. Like I was modifying knuckles for S chassis like 7, 8 years ago.
Mhm.
So I got S chassis knuckles into the US quite a bit earlier. I've done hundreds of S chassis knuckles, jigged it, and the big seller for us was that I was modifying the knuckles using a CNC designed piece that I would basically cut the knuckle up with a jig. I would then add this water jet cut piece of high strength steel in between all of my cut bits, and then I would weld it in my jig that I created to have the perfect roll center, in my opinion, the perfect acronym, the perfect geometry, corrected bump steer, and all that. And we even added changed the trail amounts in reference. Like basically, these guys were using these on stock control arms still, so we were changing it relative to what the setup was going to be, but it was a big deal. And this was like 5 to 7 years ago that I was doing this, and
Jesus.
everyone else was just cutting and moving the tie rod. So
Yeah.
you cut and move the tie rod, you do one thing, you get more angle. And what does it do to your accurate? Nobody knows. Nobody's seen it. It's just like mine gets more steering angle, I'm happy. And it's like, oh, but you're bending a tie rod every other corner that you drive on. So it's like you did something wrong, but who cared? They wouldn't hold any blame to them because there was so many people modifying knuckles and extending control arms. Like it was like probably 10 people just from Toronto to Ottawa, which is like a 4 hour circle around me. If I was doing it for $200, someone else could do it for 175 or whatever it was. So like when that's like where it all started, but like I was doing it on my own time. I didn't have to pay anybody. So like $200 to modify knuckles, like you're laughing.
Yeah.
It took you 3 hours. There's no material costs. The welder's already there. The gas, you're barely using anything from it. So like as a guy working on weekends, you start doing 5 knuckles a weekend. Like you're bringing in $1,000 a weekend.
Yeah,
So what I did
you're
with
making
this
real
was,
money.
so then what I did with this was, um, I basically would spend that money and buy a lathe. Then I would buy a vertical mill, and then I would upgrade my welder. And I spent a couple of years doing this while working full time. So then when I did finally transition to being full time at my small little shop that you would have seen,
Mm-hmm.
I had all this equipment that I had acquired through working on weekends. And to me, it never really seemed like I was breaking my back or doing anything crazy. Like I enjoyed doing all of this stuff. So the beginning really wasn't like this crazy journey. The journey begins when you start getting employees, you start um, selling to consume, like you start offering. We have 420 products on our website. This is a we're in a consumer market where I got to deal with thousands of customers now. Like this is where the journey begins and the challenges start happening. Like you deal with the general public. 95% of people are just like you and I, reasonable, understanding, whatever. Like we're like if I took a picture of our orders today for a customer that was like I chat with pretty much everybody. If you send me a message or hit us up by email, we usually check our emails every day. If we don't, that's because we're just crazy busy. So basically, this guy was like, he ordered his kit early February. We're coming up on the 3 week mark, which is generally when we like to push everything out. Like if it's at the 3 weeks, like we're hustling on that one. And it's pretty common, unfortunately. Like we got 9 people working for me now, and it still takes 2 to 3 weeks to get these kits out. Like start to finish. Like the process of actually doing every single piece in house is, when you look at any angle kit, you're looking at like 90 pieces, like if you include washers, nuts, bolts, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at a lot, and all of this is in an assembly package or a sheet that an assembler, like one of the 3 guys that we have assembling these kits, when they're finished welding, powder coating, machining, whatever, like it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're relying, like we try not to rely on people too much, but we do rely on companies like Fastenal for hardware and bearings and other things like that. There's companies that we deal with for our high-end Heim joints. And when you got everything else done that we build in-house, and then you're waiting on one aspect or one part of the kit, like each kit uses between 6 and 10 Heim joints, like there's nothing you can do. We don't have them.
Yeah.
And we can't make them.
No.
Like
no. One day.
a bearing, a chromoly bearing is something that to manufacture would be outside the realm of basically the manufacturers of these Heim joints. That's all they make.
Yeah.
They don't make anything else because they have massive machines designated to form threading, hardening, and like basically assembling these very precise pieces of equipment of part that millions of people rely on, or they sell millions of these a year, and they're used in all kinds of applications. So they wouldn't do anything other than make Heim joints, and that's what we need. Because if I got all that equipment, I'd be $1 million, and I'm only making one part of the kit out of 90 pieces. So
yeah,
that doesn't work. So that's fine. Like if there's every company relies on somebody else regardless, and we probably do the most in-house manufacturing out of these 4 companies, if they're going to be compared. Obviously, there's others, but like I said, we're still on the lower end, but we do everything. We have our water jet machine running. I wish it was running 24/7, but these guys got to sleep, so it's not. It's running like 10 hours a day. Let's say everyone kind of takes turns working a bit later than the one guy that we have working on the machine. I keep asking him to work later and stay more, and everyone's got to have a life. So
Well, there's a point of diminishing returns too, where like you can only get staff to go so far, right? Like that's the thing too, especially when you're talking about something that realistically people are putting their lives, they're trusting their lives with your product, because at the speeds that drift cars are at the horsepower and the grip levels that we're at, if that kit fails, you can kill somebody. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So, that's got to weigh pretty heavily too. When you're like, I can't push these guys. I can only push these guys so hard because we're going to start losing quality. And it's not like this flexible light we talked about earlier. Because if that flexible light goes, like nobody dies. If your kit goes, there's a huge problem. So that I think it's it's tough. It's definitely tough whenever you're dealing with the general public, especially people who don't understand the product that you're selling or the manufacturing process. So I was once told that like 1% of your clients cause 95% of the headaches, and that's definitely the case in my experience. Um,
that's accurate. Yeah.
but yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. What at what point, like company wise, do you just go, okay, we need to get a second shift going, or we need to start running more guys, or like obviously you just expanded to a new shop, so that's a big step. That means that you have the facility to start hopefully staffing more, but like do you have a goal in mind of like, okay, we're going to hit x amount in sales, and you don't have to say how much, or I want product once productivity slips past 3 weeks regularly, now we need to bring in more people. I'm just curious if you have like a deadline or a goal in mind for that.
Sure. Basically, 3 weeks is the deadline. So we've been hovering right around the 2 to 3 week mark, and then if it gets pushed beyond that, it usually isn't because we didn't make the part. It's because we're missing a part. So that's it's kind of something that we're well under control of. And a huge issue that we fixed just in the last couple of months was powder coating. We were outsourcing powder coating, and I don't know if you can imagine, like we were spending around $7,000 a month to powder coat our parts. And bringing this, it also took weeks. Like we would take a skid of parts every other day to this company,
Wow.
and at times we wouldn't get them back for a full week. So this was a big problem, and good quality powder coating equipment is expensive, time consuming. You need a full time employee, so you got to fork out the price of the equipment, then you got to pay somebody 50 grand a year to use it. So at $7,000 a month, we were right around that threshold where we were like, you know what, payments on powder coating and paying a guy full time is going to come out to $7,000 a month. Let's do it, because
Yeah.
we can get our time from 2 weeks just for powder coating, 1 to 2 weeks just for powder coating, down to same day or next day. So, interestingly enough, my parents have been in a photography business for the last 25 years, and they just retired. So my dad is actually the one powder coating stuff now, which is kind
That's
of cool.
so awesome.
And I mean, we need a guy almost full time, but I wouldn't say 40 hours a week. So right now, to do our own parts, it's like 30 hours a week, and then we've also advertised to do powder coating for just walk-in customers. So that once people start to know that we're doing that, and we will get a local walk-in traffic, and then the goal there is to break even on our part side, and then it is to compensate or make a little bit of profit on the walk-in side. So that's definitely possible. People do it out of their garage. Companies obviously make money powder coating stuff. So we have a very high-end setup. And when we moved shop, I actually kept the old shop, which is 2,000 square feet, and the whole shop is powder coating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a kilometer away, 5 minute walk, whatever. Pretty much it's on the same road. 167 Dufferin, the other one's 99 Dufferin. So so basically we have two shops now, and then there's enough room over there that I can keep my pro car inside. We have a Corvette, and then we have a hoist over there. So we're still doing some of our development work over there and at the new shop. So we have like currently 6 cars in the shop just for development purposes, like Mazda Miata, Skyline, Corvette C7,
Nice.
um, RX-7 FD, and I don't know, a couple other things are over there that are slipping my mind. But there's a BRZ. We're gonna do a couple extra things on. I'm almost on a full rear kit
Nice, good.
for the BRZ FRS. So yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff. And the point at which we decide where we need to go further, like what you were saying, is it the 3 week? Yes, it's 3 week. There's a number of things where I am spending a full month and a half to 2 months designing a kit. Why? Because it takes a long time to measure this stuff and then reverse engineer it. So this is why we made another step to follow along with your point. We got a 3D scanner from Creoform. So the Creoform 3D scanner, handy scan. And with this, for in like 1 week, I've probably done a month's worth of work in a week, at least, I would say.
Just scanning chassis and parts and everything.
So basically, I stickered these things up. So you need to put targets on the parts,
Okay.
and the scanner references the targets and keeps the targets as basically, like I said, reference points. And then everything else around those points, it will pick up as geometry. So I just I sandblasted like 20 parts, or I got one of my guys to do it. He brought them over, we stickered them all up, and I was just scanning all day for like a full day, just scanning stuff.
That's gonna be kind of fun.
And it's amazing. Like when I get the scan, and I've always been pretty fluent with 3D CAD. I used to teach CAM, CNC programming, CAD. I used to teach at college. So using this software is like, as soon as I got the thing, they're like, oh, we'll give you a free day's worth or whatever of training and stuff. So I was on a Zoom call with them for a couple hours, and I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to go. I think I got it. And then I got the call, and then the rest is history. I haven't emailed them or talked to them ever since. So
nice. That's good though. That's the way you got to do it, right? Like,
yeah, and Careerform's a Canadian company. Their support's awesome, and like guys like Chair Slayer use it.
I was just gonna ask, is that the same one? Because I've seen the shit he's doing with it, and it's crazy.
Yeah, he's insane. So basically, when I got, like, I mean, I've seen his videos, and we were pricing out these scanners, and the Careerform scanner was significantly more than competitors that claim to have the same accuracy. So basically, they're reading around 0.2 millimeters accuracy. That is, to put it simply, the size of the triangle that is created when scanning a surface. So when the scanner scans over a surface, like if we're talking about a steering knuckle on a car, it's creating that surface using triangles.
Yeah.
And these triangles are sized based on the accuracy, fluidity, and the type of surface that you want, and they're all claiming to read down to 0.2 millimeters. So when I got on the phone with them, they were like, yeah, it's this much more, but this is why it's better and whatever. So then after like looking at Chair Slayer stuff, it just seems seamless, right? Like I couldn't find much data on the other brands, so I knew enough about his, and it was just like, we're just gonna have to go for this one, even if it is a bit more. Luckily, we talked them into getting a really competitive price on it. So I really couldn't say no after a few emails going back and forth, which pays off. Like, let me tell you, if you're like, if we go into, like, I can't even tell you how many sponsorship requests we get now. So if I was to give anybody advice on how to get a sponsorship, I could definitely touch on that.
Yeah.
I can't even see. Basically, these comments are stuck still, like they don't.
Oh my, yeah, I've been like kind of scrolling them up on the odd occasion. If you want I'm pretty sure the mic that's being picked up is the one on your headphones. If you want, you can swing that forward, because I don't know if the Yeti's picking up right now. But
this one's picking up.
I'm
this is picking up.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So it sounds better.
You could, yeah, there you go. You can try and change it if you want. Where we change.
Nah, if it sounds fine, I'll just put. I don't know why this one says it says on the computer that this one's connected, but maybe it's not.
It might be overriding. Gotta love gaming headsets. They're just so needy. But
so this one sounds fine.
Now, yeah, you're good now. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
It was just rubbing a bit, I'm not complaining. I just, people bitch in comments. So I want to save you from that.
You know what? Complaining solves a lot of problems.
Man, it's so true. It's funny. I say this to clients all the time, because like a lot of what I do is advertising work. and people automatically assume that like whatever you're going to do as an advertiser is going to work immediately. And my job is to get it as close as possible. But like I explain to people, look, if something doesn't work, we're going to gain as much data, if not more data, from that than we are if it was a success. If it's a success, we may not necessarily know why it was a success. We just know this entire package is. If something fails, we can see the failure point and we can fix that and then move ahead. If something works immediately out of the gate, you just know that everything within this box works, but you don't necessarily know why. So anyways, it's always a hard pitch, especially when people are paying you, but
it's a hard pitch to make because it's a simple concept to grasp, but it's kind of difficult to explain. I've said in multiple occasions, we recently paired up with FedEx and just our account with them. Obviously, you can imagine we ship a lot of stuff. So we're spending like, let's say 150 to 200K a year in shipping.
Jesus.
And so I'm on the FedEx committee board, if you will, for small businesses and how I went from point A to where I am now and all the train, like I was handwriting these packing slips and driving them to the post office and paying absurd amounts of money to ship stuff. So I started there and then I got an account with UPS and then I was still handwriting these things until I got an online account. And then like, obviously it's seamless now. Like we can go on our website. Basically it does almost everything for you. But how did I get there without making all these other mistakes?
Right.
I wouldn't have got there. The only way I would have gotten there is if someone like me told you how to do it. And sometimes, like, you got to think, I wish somebody did. The problem with being an entrepreneur and starting a business is you don't have the answers to anything. You can compare notes with somebody that's
similar
in the food industry or like sells yoga mats or something, but like you're not going to be able to get the answers to your questions. You're only going to be able to get an idea. So basically, I learned through everything the hard way to get to where I am now. And could I write a book on it in a couple of years? Probably. Like we're still only running at like probably 60% efficiency. Like we got a lot of things to get better at. We got a lot of things to clean up and do faster, especially when it comes to like I order literally everything that has to do with the business and getting the supplies and materials that we need to make this stuff. So, and I'm not an organized guy. So basically, it's a miracle. Like my mom says it all the time. Not she doesn't say it's a miracle that the business even works, but basically that I was able to orchestrate it in a way that actually does work because I'm getting a lot better efficiency wise. But yeah, like you were saying, mistakes are the best lesson. Even if it costs you, you would have had to pay 20 grand to take a course on that to learn. Like if you went to university for business, for example, it's a really expensive course to take, and you may not have even learned that lesson. To be honest with you, you may not have even gotten that. So basically, I'm learning the lessons directly where it actually matters and it's relevant, and then I know exactly what to do to fix it. Because like you said, you either see a failure or you see where like I'm clearly spending $150 to ship a package that should cost $50. So something's not working here because nobody's willing to pay it. So obviously people are able to ship things
cheaper,
way more efficiently and so on. So that's probably like the biggest change, because as we began shipping more and more stuff, this was a problem that had to be addressed immediately.
Especially shipping from Canada. Like that's just that's something people in the US don't just have no idea about. It's like the moment you cross the border, everything is infinitely more complex. It's just with whatever you're doing, whether you're traveling, you're shipping, you're buying, you're selling, it's just immediately a hassle. And obviously the US is such a big market that if you can't find a way to adapt and overcome and find a better way, you're not going to. It sucks. It sucks that Canada can't support most of its own markets, but it just can't. We are so heavily dependent on the US.
Directly, yeah. Like there's nothing that, like, our steel prices are dependent on the US as well. And even if we're ordering raw material and cutting it ourselves, still depends on the US. Like that's
Yeah.
where they're getting it from. So, and then the US isn't always getting it from the US either. So that's a whole nother story. But
Oh man, China steel? No, that's never happened.
yeah, it's impressive that they're able to, like, whenever you ship something, it's based on the weight of whatever you're shipping, right?
Right.
It's incredible that even with the weight of something as dense as just steel, that you can still manufacture it overseas, put that on a boat and send it here, and then sell it from the US and then to Canada. You can do all of that cheaper than just making it ourselves. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's I mean, as much as I'd love
Because
to get
that's a
into like
lot of
global
that's a lot
economics.
of additional cost when you're talking about a month at sea.
Right.
Um, the labor it requires on both ends. Like let's say on the Chinese end, they don't pay anybody. It's okay, but they got to pay people on our end to
Yeah.
unload it.
And
So like
import fees and yeah.
all these costs are factored in, and it's still cheaper. It's like it's impressive. It's impressive.
Um, all right, well, let's get it. We definitely got into business, and I think you and I could probably just sit down and talk like business and policy and things like that, probably forever. Um, let's just talk. Let's get into drifting. I think obviously a lot of people who are here they want to talk about drifting. Um, One of the things that I am a big proponent of is just sharing information when it comes to setup and things like that, especially to younger guys, grassroots guys. I am not professing to know a ton. I am pretty good at being able to look at things and figure out what is wrong with the car, but maybe not necessarily how to fix it. And that's mostly just because of my video background where I've looked at so many cars in action, especially in slow motion, because that's kind of became my thing.
Hmm.
For me, I'm usually able to look and be like, oh, there's an issue with rebound control or something. You can see the car skipping, you can see stuff like that. We touched on it a little bit before we even started, but what what do you think the biggest mistake guys are making right now with their setups, whether they're running your kit or stock kits or anything else? I know what it is in my mind, but I'm curious what you think from somebody that I mean, obviously is your livelihood.
That's a good question. Like we had just a quick talk before the video started, but I would say that the biggest thing that people are focusing on that is somewhat irrelevant is like like we got to pick a topic because whatever, like if we're going to talk about getting more grip out of a chassis, then the thing that people may focus on too much in terms of their level that they're drifting at would be the mechanical setup of the chassis versus the tires compound and the tires air pressure. When you're talking about mechanical advantage, you're talking about a 5% margin
Right.
of improvement over your competitor. If you can figure out a mechanical advantage over them, you're going to gain 5% based on your anti-squat and your roll center and your sway bar setups and whatever you're going to do in the rear of the car or in the front of the car to gain more grip, to go faster, or to handle better. You're talking about a margin once you have the car set up well enough and you buy a well-known kit, let's say front and rear. Like I said, you're talking about a margin
When you buy an
that's super
FDF
small.
kit, I when you buy an FDF kit, we'll clear everybody else out. We've already talked about them. Let's get rid of that. And after you buy your FDF kit,
Sure,
this is what you need to do.
sure. So
You're too
when
modest,
we
god damn it.
when we talk about it, um, yeah, like we can only be biased to a certain extent. Like I'm here up in here in Canada. I ran at a competition event where we had 23 drivers and 19 of them uh, are running FTF kits, and then
Wow.
first and third place were FTF kits. Now the driver who won is an amazing driver,
Mhm.
and then second place was Dave Briggs,
Who is
who
an
run
ex
who
pro
runs
driver?
yeah, it runs PBM front and rear. This is what I'm talking about though. When you're comparing suspension brands and companies and whatever, this is something I've talked to with a exceptionally good driver, Mike Pollard, who's basically run it all. Um, to him, like he's still gonna win. Like it doesn't really matter what he's driving; he's still gonna win. Um, So he's just an exceptional driver. So you give him tools that he feels the car is working better, which is why he's been running our kits for the last 2 years, and he feels that he's gained something, a big something. It's marginal. Like I was saying, it's marginal. So when the biggest mistake that people are making is trying to get a mechanical advantage over their counterparts, and what they should be focusing on is what we talked about: seat time, getting behind the wheel of the car, because if you are a better driver than somebody else, you are going to have a 15 to 20% advantage over them. If you have a better alignment than them, you're going to have a 5% advantage on them. So
Yeah.
it's like, let's focus on what really matters here and then dial in the setup, because that number continues to get smaller and smaller as you deal with like setting up the front, setting up the rear. You're losing 10% here, then you're losing 10% there, and all you really needed to do was just change your compounded tires if you feel like you're too slow. It's like you're married to one tire brand and it's just not competitive. So like changing your tires and changing the air pressure will make a much bigger difference than if you were to just say, oh, like I just extended my traction arm and I got like so much more grip. It's like it's marginal. Like I'm telling you, there's definitely things that need to be done to gain those advantages mechanically, and those are things that if you have the understanding, then you should do it. This is why I've done my suspension geometry videos on YouTube,
Which are anybody
because
listening, please just go and watch. Like, yeah, if you are a drifter, if you at any point in time need to touch your suspension, please watch these videos first.
so it's a basic understanding
Yeah.
of what's happening. So if if you have the same kit, like if you both have FDF kits on your S chassis, but one of you is running a wider track width,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you extended your control arms a bit more, but what else does this change? It changes everything. It
Yeah.
changes your kingpin axis angle, which changes the amount of grip that you're going to have at lock. And if you're and if one guy has their rack relocated 25 millimeters and the other guy has their rack relocated 40 millimeters, I showed in my video dynamically throughout your rack's travel range, you're going to get a totally different toe curve,
Yeah.
or Ackerman curve, whatever you understand it as, from lock to lock. It's totally different. Like it's not even like we're talking. I would move the rack 1 inch of travel, and I had my rack relocated forward versus relocated backwards on my display, and I did the same 1 inch of movement with my steering rack. One is with the rack forward, one is with the rack backwards. We saw a difference in 5 degrees of angle. So what is that, like how relevant is that? It's huge. It's
Yeah.
massive considering that like Formula 1 cars or time attack cars are only ever turning 10 to 15 degrees max to actually race around a track. 5 degrees is huge. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, if your buddy's got his rack relocated and you don't, you can't even compare notes with them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And then
Everything else, yeah, everything else is going
if
to be
you're
different.
running so, but what everyone talks about is that they have the same camber caster toe. It's like, should I run for toe? Oh, just run 1/8 toe out or slight toe out, whatever, 0.2 degrees. What should I run for my caster? 5.5. What should I run for my camber? -4. Okay, we have the same numbers, but our cars are handling different. Well, your rack's in the factory location. My rack's not. Your track width is wider. Mine is narrower. You're running +12 offset. I'm running +20 offset. Those two kits couldn't handle more differently. Like they couldn't.
Yeah.
And then you factor in where your center of gravity is, which I know nobody's measuring. and and you've got a totally different chassis from your buddy, even if they're both a 1997 240 or if they're both a 2003 BMW, whatever. Like it's not even comparable. So this is what everybody needs to understand on a basic level. That what I just said was all basic. Like it if you wanted to research it outside of my own videos, which my videos are trying to pertain to drifting specifically,
Yeah.
because there really isn't any data out there. Like if you typed in scrub radius, you're going to get a ton of forums and a ton of information. It's great information. You should all read it. But the problem is it's always related to a factory car or a race car, like a time attack car,
Yeah.
road race car, Formula 1 car, whatever. So reading those is fine. Understanding it by reading it is what you should be doing. Applying it to your drift car is where we need to take that step, um, beyond what you really can't find online. And you can find forums for drifting where they have opinions on pretty much everything. But then you look at professional drifters in Japan that like to run a lot of scrub radius, and then you come, and read about scrub radius, and they're like, well, they shouldn't like a lot of scrub radius.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you need to understand, and then their style of driving, the tire compound that they're running, oh my goodness, their chassis setup. What is their kingpin axis? You don't even know what angle that is at on their car. So if you're like, oh, like he's put a 4-inch spacer on, if he's got 30 degrees of KPI, he's going to have a low scrub radius still. Like, I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying you don't you don't know what these cars have, and you can't compare notes to an extent. Like, the only way you can compare is literally if you built two of the same cars. So like if we could compare two HGK cars that are built, they're obviously blueprinted and made pretty much identical. So that's something that you can compare.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, you're sponsored by Kansai. Well, you're sponsored by Cosmos. Kansai and Cosmos don't even make wheels that have the same offset. So right off the bat, you can't even, like, you can talk about it with each other and see what handles, and how it handles, and so on. But you could go on about it, but that's basically the main point, is that nobody has a basic understanding, and everybody needs a basic understanding. And if I'm the guy to do that, that's fine. If you want to get your information from somewhere else, there's tons of information out there. Like, I'm not reinventing any sort of wheel here. Like, this is all over the place.
Yeah.
All online.
You're repackaging it with much better dynamic visuals, though. And I think that's what the difference is that, like, the references that a lot of people have when it comes to, like, steering setups or differential setups, of those like black and white 1940s. Okay, we've got one post here and one post here on a wheel, and this is how a differential works. So you've taken that, which we all kind of know and love, and then adapted it to a sport where you actually need this information. Yeah, that's, you know what I mean? I think that's why I love those videos so much, is like, you are getting the information as well as a very, very good dynamic display. Because the way that I learn, for me just to read that information is not going to happen. The moment you show me how different that travel is, it's like, holy shit. Like, now I can't argue
Really
with
important.
it because it's there. And
really important. And it's really important to make a display that you can touch it.
yeah. Dioramas are
it's
fucking
like,
awesome. It's like Science Center,
it's like,
for drift cars.
Like, when you're working on your car, like, you got to loosen a bolt to adjust something. So when I'm on this display, I got to do the same thing. So it's like, well, what do you loosen? Well, I built the display to have the same attachment points as if it was a factory chassis, or the chassis that we'd be working with. And by doing that, it's like, oh wow, he's adjusting the two bolts on a McPherson strut where there is usually a slot, and he's gaining camber, but only at the wheel. It doesn't change the kingpin axis
Because
angle.
it
So
pivots
it's
at
like,
that point. Yeah.
now for display purposes, this was like exaggerated. Like, even if a car does, like, if you look at an RX-7 FC, from the coilover brands available that I've seen, and then from the factory knuckle, there is no camber adjustment there. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying that every car has it, but I was basically saying, if the factory angle has a mounting point that's already angled, then they don't need to have it, because they've already built it in to have that angle. So it's like, with a 240, they knew that there was going to be some variance between, and then, like, Nissan used the S14 and the S13 and the S15. They were all basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, they increased the spindle diameter when they went from 13 to 14, and then they moved the tension arm bracket a bit further away. But otherwise, dimensionally, they're the same. The steering rack, the S13 rack, was a 48 millimeter, and then the S14 rack was a 45 millimeter. So, like, very minor changes. Dimensionally, they're the same. When you're talking about alignment specs and stuff, you're going to set it up the same way. The S14 had a slightly wider track width, and so on. So you could go into that, because I know everything about those. But basically, in saying that, what we have to do with what was the like that? I'm kind of
I don't
off
even know.
topic now
All
completely.
that I know is that you light the fuck up the moment you start talking about suspension geometry. Like you get so excited about this topic. And one, that is why you run a successful business, to go back to our previous topic. And two, why, once again, that excitement, the moment you start talking about this shit, you're just like, just please ask me more questions about it. You know what I mean? You were very
Yeah,
ready to
yeah,
explain anything and everything.
exactly. But it's something that just needs to be explained. So
I agree.
it's
I
like,
100% agree.
and it's exciting and it's interesting. So when you
I
can
mean,
see
for
these
you, it is.
changes, yeah. Well, I'm not saying that from using this display, I found something out that I didn't already know, but
You
from
just,
using this display, I definitely saw changes that were more drastic than I had initially thought. For example, the rack relocation changes the toe curve when you're going through your travel range of like from 0 degrees to close to 70 degrees.
mhm.
And this is important because that's where we can't, like, if we're drifting at, if we had to pick an angle that we average while in drift, like let's call it 30 to 35 degrees. Once you go to lock and once you're locked into a corner, the majority of the time you're not drifting at full lock. Um,
No.
this is obviously up for debate depending on tracks and whatever, but let's just say that's super important that it takes a different amount of turns and the rack has a different amount of leverage in order for the wheel to get to the same angle if you just relocate the rack. Like this is like super basic and it's super important. And yeah, like we could go on and on and on about specifics to do a suspension setup, but basically understanding what we've done 5 episodes. We just did scrub radius. We launched it today. Scrub radius and kingpin inclination or steering axis inclination. These two go hand in hand and they are. Oh, we just lost
I
our
saw that. We just lost the Instagram
Instagram.
one. Want to do another one? We'll just set up another one, but keep going. I guess if I can remember how to do this.
I guess it's a limit to an hour,
It must
probably.
be, yeah. That's funny. I don't know if they'll let me do another one. Huh. That's
That's
funny.
whatever.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was good though.
they can hop on. Maybe they'll transition over to. Maybe you'll see an influx of viewers coming
Oh,
over.
I might be able to do another one again. Well, it doesn't matter. If we can get this going again, I'd rather do that. People seem pretty stoked with it. So, um, FDF send request. There you go. Part 2. Yeah, dude, we already crushed an hour. It's crazy how fast it goes, huh? Sorry, live stream people. Got to keep the YouTube people happy too.
Can you see how many people are on your live stream?
I was seeing like 20 or so on the Instagram stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, that was around
but
there.
sweet. Yeah, I don't even know where you're at, but question for you: will you be bringing that display to like when you compete? Is that coming with you to check things, or like is it one of those like I feel like I know what I need to know to get this done?
That display has no dimensional like relation
Similarity
to
to okay,
any vehicle whatsoever.
okay,
So it was based on like to be honest with you, everything that's adjustable on it
is
is
exaggerated.
just 25 millimeter spacing and 50 millimeter spacing, or basically 1 and 2 inch spacing.
Hmm.
To put it simply, I know it's not exactly, it's 25.4, but
Oh.
the it's
Sorry.
1 inch is 25.4 millimeters.
Right.
The spacing of the jig was just for simplicity. Like if I had to add anything to it, I need to know is that
Okay.
I could make a bracket and just drill 2 holes 2 inches apart and it'll go anywhere on this jig.
Right.
That's why I built it. That's how I built it. It does not relate to any
Okay.
vehicle
It was purpose
whatsoever.
built for display, not to relate to.
Yeah,
a
it will
chassis.
not be. But the interesting thing about that display is that a college professor from St. Lawrence and Kingston messaged me and said, "I've been using your videos in my advanced automotive class, automotive techniques, advanced automotive techniques. It's called like AAT course or something." And then he's like, "We got to get that display. Like you gotta make more of them, and then you gotta sell them." And I was like, "Well, to be honest, I have never seen one like it, where you can actually give a car a zeroed out angle. Like if you wanted to um, play around with your chassis, let's say your BMW, for example,
Yeah.
and you wanted to see how kinematically it would change if you zeroed out the caster, you can't zero out the caster. Like there is no adjustment range that will allow you to do that. The wheel's going to run into the back of the wheel well or the tower. You're just not going to be able to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
like on this jig, I can zero the caster, but I can have all the other angles at a factory setting. And it's like you can't do that anywhere. Nobody can show you what's happening
Mm.
when you eliminate all other characteristics and focus on one. So when I was doing that in one of the first videos, I said, let's eliminate every single thing except for caster and see what's actually happening. And I graphed it and I put it on a table. And then you could see that caster was affecting the wheel in this way. And we know that caster is doing this effect because that's the only thing that is on this jig right now. Like there's no KPI angle, there's no other angles to play around with.
Mm.
It's just caster. So
It's
it's
yeah.
like we were able to do that and show you like why is my wheel gaining so much camber, and it's like let me tell you this is why, and then just show you, and then I can give you a little table with like some comparative notes and you can like take a screenshot of it or whatever. Like it's that simple, it's as basic as it can be. And then like trying to explain scrub radius, and I'm like, let's talk about the effects of having a positive zero and negative scrub radius. Okay, well, what's the easiest way to do this? And I'm like going through all these ideas. I actually made a 33-minute video on scrub radius and KPI, sent it to my buddy Tom, and well, it was posted for a little bit, and Tom's like, this is way too long. Like you're talking about way too many things. There's too much stuff.
There's so
And
much. I want to see this
like,
now.
well, we didn't delete it. We just saved it because it was basically we said, okay, no, you're right. We got to do a point form.
It
So I
was thick.
basically it's too thick, double seed.
Yeah.
We had to basically I just wrote down a point form questionnaire, gave it to my videographer Jack, and then we redid the whole thing, but in like 10 minutes. It was 12 minutes. And like when I say it was 12 minutes long, like we filmed it in probably 13 minutes.
Mm.
So it was like one take. We just did the 33-minute version. We know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we're going to really condense it. So
Trim
I
all the
basically,
fat. Yeah.
a lot of fat was in that one. So I just kept like basically on one scene, it was like 10 minutes of just straight up what's happened. I said, this is perfect for a podcast, that whole video probably. But for the purpose of a YouTube video where you're trying to tell somebody what something is, didn't work. Didn't
Mm.
work. Way too much talking. So we redid it, and it's a good thing that we did that. So when talking about it, I'm trying to think of like what can everybody relate to? What can I visually say that somebody's going to be able to be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I was like, okay, well, let's say we have 3 different versions of scrub radius, and you get a flat tire. What's happening when you get a flat tire with positive, zero, and negative scrub radius? This visually can now align everybody into a scenario that we can all understand. Because when you say like if you have positive scrub radius and you're cornering and you have 70% weight transfer on the outside wheel, what are the effects on your steering on that wheel? And then dynamically, what are the effects on the other wheel? Because you only have 30% on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't give that as an example because there's too many things going on and like we can't relate to it. So anyways, it was 12 minutes, much better.
Yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen that one
I
yet.
don't know if you didn't watch that one yet,
No,
but
no. It's not. I didn't get time.
yeah,
Didn't do my
like it's
homework,
only
man.
12 it's only 12 minutes this time, so it's not you can take a break or watch it in no time.
I will say, your videographer is doing a fantastic job from one media guy to another. Dude is absolutely doing a fantastic job. So, I think I met him once just briefly at the track this summer, but yeah, I know we've got a couple of questions if you want to get to any of them in particular. There's one here in the chat where a guy is asking which FD drivers are going to be running FDF in 2021. I guess
good question. There's so last year we had 13 drivers get on our program, get the kits, install them, and then coronavirus happened. So there ended up being like Alec Robbins, Steve Misko, Ricky Hoffman. Then there's a couple other guys running like various products of that we sell. Like if
Yeah.
we sell heel plates or steering column kits or just adjustable control arms or whatever.
Yeah.
So
General things.
there's definitely quite a few just running random stuff, and then there's a couple that are just dedicated front, rear, full FDF. I actually built Steve Misko and Ricky's cars. They brought them to Canada.
Oh, right.
Uh, we built them and then we sent them back. So those two drivers would have been like, yeah, that's fully FDF. But then when we're talking about who's going to be on this year in Prospect, it's one of those things that I really like to reiterate when I get emails about sponsorships is like the amount of people that promise and don't deliver is probably like it's not in favor of supporting them, to be honest. Like if
Yeah.
out of
It's a
10
problem.
guys out of 10 guys you're going to get 3 that commit
Yeah.
to what they said that they would do for you, or and then like we're really banking on the overachievers, honestly, and they do a lot of stuff for us, and we support them fully. I mean, we start off with like these guys are paying a decent amount still for these kits. Like we don't give anything away for free. So to then see the return and the amount that they're willing to do for us, that's when they start seeing the support from us. And this is because of the amount of sponsorships that have fallen through and not committed. So like we're doing signed contracts at this point. Like we
You have to. You
are,
have to. Absolutely have to.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
at the beginning, like we weren't, when I say at the beginning, like a couple of years ago, we were pretty relatively small, to be honest. It was
Yeah.
just
Well, it's just
me
word
and a
of mouth and
welder.
emails, right? You're like, well, I got an email that says you do this, right?
Exactly. So we're
Yep.
doing signed contracts. Like there's expectations on both sides to meet the needs of the driver, and then there's the driver's need to fulfill. Because honestly, if I'm giving you a discount, I need that value back in something else. And
Yeah. Media
gen-
exposure, sales. Like sales, ultimately, you need it back in sales at the end of the day.
yeah, and if you have it back in sales, then you will be supported further, and you
Yeah.
will get either better discounts or free parts or whatever, depending on your performance. So we always start out very modestly when it comes to giving a discount or supporting or partnering up with the driver, and then we see what happens. So this year, again, I'm going to say there's at least 15 pro licensed drivers that have made the purchase and gotten our products. And yeah, could I list them all? I have no idea if they're going to commit to going to pro
Well,
spec or not.
it's
So
tough, and on that note, like there's so much going on that got dropped on FD drivers in the off season that you know, I mean, just to come to their defense in a way, um, nobody fucking knows what they're doing. I've talked to I don't know how many Pro 2 drivers. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we actually have no idea now. Like, do we? A lot of them are getting the invite to go up to pro, right? So they're in this boat where it's like, do you commit to pro, try and run 8 rounds, which is incredibly tough, or do I start remodifying this car to start going back, or do I build another car? Like, there's no simple decision for a modest budget Pro 2 guy right now, which really sucks. You know what I mean?
yes, um, a lot of people have asked me about it because I'm currently building another car right now, RX-7 FD, to pro spec, like the rear rad, the pedal box, the steering column, basically everything that they are getting rid of, and it's got a HGT sequential transmission in it, twin turbo LS, 1,000 horsepower build.
Yeah, it's ready for pro, but
Yeah,
it's
we
to
can't
be
run this in Pro 2 anymore
no,
as
no,
of
it's fucked.
as
Yeah,
of yeah. So what's gonna happen with ProSpec? I think that they were. I'm not making accusations, and I could be completely wrong, but like it's kind of goes along with that. Like any publicity is good publicity. That created a lot of chatter. Like I don't know if you noticed, but like
yeah, dude,
anyone that had anything to do with drifting was
came out of the
talking
woodwork.
about it.
Yeah, old
This
drivers,
is
new drivers,
this is
forums
good.
everywhere.
This is good. This is relevant. This makes everybody talking about it. This is a big deal. Like they did something that put a wave through everybody in the drift community. And it's
Yeah,
funny because I talk to other guys that are in pro or whatever, and they're kind of laughing because it's like like some of these posts had 5, 6, 700 comments, hundreds of shares, and it's like there's only 40 drivers in FD and in Pro 2, and I mean last year there was only like 16 or 17
Yeah.
because of COVID. So it's like, what is there this many people concerned? Like, guys, you don't need to build a pro level car
Right away.
right away, and everything is subject to change. Like the amount of times where, like, I get it if you've already taken out your pedal box and you've already got a rear rad and whatever, it kind of sucks. You're still able to run this year, so it's almost like an incentive to get in there, get it done, and move on. So they
Yeah.
want you to get in there, compete in pro spec, get the job done, finish in the top 8, get your pro license or petition for a pro license, and get on out of pro spec. Because what they're trying to do over the next 5 to 10 years, so my opinion, they're trying to make it more of a split between Pro and Pro 2. Right now, the winners of Pro 2, there's a Pro car with 255 tires on it.
Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, they all are.
So their transition is the bigger tires and go on. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think they want there to be a split or a difference that makes sense. And is the steering column thing kind of silly? In my opinion, yes. It's not a financial burden on a team to change it. And when you got a guy like me who's 6'5", like you got to get rid of that factory column. That's just one of the first things I do.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like I can do all the work for it and whatnot. That's fine. Maybe other people can't. But like I've done a number of installs on this stuff, and like you're talking 8 to 10 hours to charge somebody to do it. So like if somebody had to pay for all the parts and pay a shop to do it, like you're not talking about a lot of money here. That's going to break the bank any more than like a GSR dog box will, or switching to a quick change.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing this progressively
to bring them back closer.
It's all subject to change. It's all subject to change, but they're doing it progressively, and it's going to continue to get more and more strict to the point where we are drifting pretty high horsepower stock cars, like a middle ground chassis.
Yeah.
Is what they're competing with, and that is ultimately the goal, to have a low budget field to compete with. Because right now you take out the steering column, you take out the pedal box, you still can run 900 horsepower, and the rear rad thing won't be changed until 2024.
And it's not even confirmed that it's going to change. It is just
I don't think it will.
Change.
I don't think it will, just because
there's
the benefits
of
running it. Well, it's a financial thing. They want to make it so that if somebody can't change it, that they're not at a disadvantage financially. If they can't change it, they're not at a disadvantage, which arguably, if you don't want to change it, it's not a disadvantage. The only thing that you're risking is that your rad is in a vulnerable spot. There's a lot of heat if you're running a turbo engine setup. Like these are things that aren't, they're reliability dependent, not advantage. It's not an advantage. You're going to get more weight over the axle, but like, again, this is what we talked about in the chassis setup thing and what you should focus on with changing. That's going to be marginal in comparison to other aspects like seat time and driver skill. So if somebody's got a front rad and the other guy's got a rear rad, how much faster is he going to be if those are the only two changed variables? We're talking 1 to 2% speculation, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. So like it's one of those things, like there's guys that'll walk all over you. Front rad, basic setup.
Oh yeah.
Mike
saw Travis Reeder do it.
Example. Yeah.
Another one. Yeah.
So this is the.
But what I don't. Here's my question though. Why not say? And I guess they kind of have. You have 3 years or you have 2 years to build this car. Like we're gonna go right to that. We're gonna go right to that spec style car where it is like, okay, you got the interior, you cage it, and you can add whatever engine you want, but everything else has kind of got to stay the same. Why not just give everyone 2 years and just say that's what's going to happen in 2 years? Pro 2 guys, you have 2 years to either decide what you're going to fucking do. Are you going to pick up your game and try and make the jump to pro? It's tearing the Band-Aid off. Like, why are they tearing the Band-Aid off slowly? Just get it over with. If that is what you want to do, it does seem very much like we're going to test the waters with this and test the waters with this. And the problem with that, and realistically, the only people that have a severe problem with this is someone that has already made those changes. So how many people do you think are out there that are at that level that have built a pro car where this is actually of inconvenience? You've confirmed 40 in Pro 2. How many Pro-Am guys? Probably another.
Yeah, Pro-Am's a big one because these guys built their cars for Pro-Am. It's probably in the 100 to 200.
Yeah,
range
I was gonna
America.
say a couple thousand, like North American wide, because like locally we could probably name 4 or 5 just within our own little community. We're like, oh yeah, no, this is a problem for, these guys. But anyways, I would have, if somebody came to me, if Ryan Sage is like, Jacob, we love your opinions, run the fucking company, how do we do this? I would say, give everybody 2 years, make it a thing. Here you go. Here's what the car is going to look like. Pro 2 guys, you have 2 seasons. Either get your shit together or build one of those. Your call. It sucks, and you're going to piss off a lot of people, but.
So how did they, I don't think they really did that. They kind of actually did do that. This year, if you have a sequential, you got to change it.
Yeah.
That actually kind of makes sense. You know
I
why?
agree. That one does.
Sequential is a huge advantage when we're dealing with a bunch of pro level cars on a 255 tire.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about any kind of advantage over somebody else, that has to do with money, which is what their main point is.
That's the sequential.
Sequential is the biggest financial difference that you're going to find. Not the biggest. I think it's one of the biggest that you're going to find between having a much faster car off the start.
Yeah.
Than somebody else is if you've got 20 grand to dump in a box and everyone else has 5 to 10. So taking that, and then we're all on 255 tires and we're all on the same brand tires. That's the other variable that I was telling you about, where you can get 20 to 30% of difference in grip just by changing your air pressure in your tire compound.
Look at the difference between Nitto. Look at the difference between in Pro 2, was it Nitto and Achilles? Go look at their winners. Yeah, there's definitely a huge advantage with tire there.
Yes. So talking about that, it's that was a great move. I don't think that sequential transmissions have any place in Pro 2.
I agree.
And that is a huge flex if you have a lot of money, that you're rolling up to the line with a sequential 6-speed transmission.
Yeah.
And we're all running H pattern 4 speeds, which I love. I wouldn't have changed it even if I did go and made it to Pro 1 at some point. Well, maybe I would. I wouldn't say that, but I
Sam
like
Sonis
the 4-speed.
Sam Sonis walks up, it's like, yo.
Sure. So that was an excellent point, move, made perfect sense. The other aspects, which are subject to change because it's not effective until 2022, is everyone needs to be on link for FT. Is that correct?
Yep. And
then 2023 is the column and pedal boxes, or are those being in effect in 2022 as well?
No, I think no, they are in 2022. 2023, I think, is just the rad and it says proposed. So
okay,
I believe. I understand what you're saying. As I
said, they decided to cause a bunch of chatter and they succeeded, probably surpassed their expectations.
It's as a marketing move, it's a fantastic move. Make a big thing and everyone is going to talk about it.
It's the same as the Square cereal company that said, look, we now have diamonds, and all they did was just rotate the picture on the box. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. People that said, oh, that's dumb, whatever.
Are we talking about it? If you and I still fucking remember that, it worked. If it didn't actually, yeah, it's brilliant.
People, the problem I had with that one was that so many people had the conversation and were like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, that's the smartest thing I've ever seen ever. It's like not a single thing changes for them.
No.
But everyone's talking about it. I was like, it's brilliant. If you could change nothing and have everyone all of a sudden talk about your brand, wow, you've hit the jackpot.
All that you're doing is pointing out something that's incredibly obvious that already existed.
It's brilliant. And people that said it, that is so stupid. amazing.
But
You're absolutely right.
it's
But
funny. They prove, but in stating that, they prove their own point. It's brilliant because you think it's stupid and you tell somebody you've acknowledged and spent part of your day talking about that brand in whatever light.
100%, 100%.
There it is.
That's got value. That's got value.
Yeah, brand recognition, man.
So when they came out with the prospect rule book, they effectively did cause so much chatter, shares, whatever. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I'm about to develop and make a replacement subframe for the 350Zs. And the one, like literally one of the first questions was, it was a story. So they just replied to it. Oh, is it going to be FD legal? Like, no, it's not. You can't run a fully replaced subframe in FD.
Yeah.
But who cares? Like, if you got to swap it out, you got to swap it out.
I'm sorry, there's 40 people that can't buy this. That's it.
No, that's my point. That's my point. It's like, and that's what a couple of the FD guys were saying when they were like, that's a great idea. This is something that we need. What's the price point going to be? So I'm telling them the price point. They're like, wow, that's great. Like, an actual FD driver isn't pointing out the fact that it's not FD legal. They just think it's a great idea to improve something that needs improving.
Yeah.
And then everyone else that's nowhere near FD is like, oh my goodness, it's not FD legal. I can't buy it. It's like, why? Are you going to FD? Yeah. Like, have you made the conscious decision to put everything aside, pay thousands of dollars, invest
tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yeah,
not millions. It's not millions, but it is. It's full disclosure. To run a Pro 2 season comfortably, you need at least $30,000.
Yes,
bare
I would
minimum.
agree with you 100%.
You can do it for less, and I said comfortably. Where like you have a hotel and you're not sleeping in a room with 7 or 8 guys, because that happens all the time. So you can do it for less, but yeah, you're committed $15,000 just between travel and.
Is this USD or Canadian?
USD, 100% USD.
Yeah, exactly,
dude, that money does not travel well. I like having US clients. I hate traveling to the US or buying US shit right now.
Yeah, you just look at it and you just so much more than it's advertised right now. You think McDonald's, you're getting a good deal. You're like, you know what? McDonald's is more expensive in the US. The cups are bigger, so you get a lot more.
You get a lot more. And those fucking breakfast biscuits, though, holy shit.
Yeah, I know we could use some of that for sure. But when $6 equals 10, almost, it's like,
it's brutal. Like I said, I love having US clients. Every time a US client calls, I'm like, hey, I'll drop everything. I'm gonna do this for you. I did that very recently, where I like pushed everything aside for one client. For like,
I mean, if we're talking numbers, we had 79% of our sales US.
Yeah, that's killer.
9% of sales Canadian, 11% international, and the international one's going up quite a bit in relation. Like, we're selling a ton to Japan. Like, we are selling a lot to Japan. Japan
you are big in Japan.
I am huge in Japan.
You are huge in Japan.
So our one dealer there said, "What size are you?" And I'm like, "Well, in Canadian, like if I'm buying a hoodie, like it's a double XL. Like I'm 6'5", so I need a big sweater." And then he's like, "Ooh, we do not go like that size, like basically." And he sent me a quadruple X shirt, button-up shirt with all the sponsors on it. It was really nice. Like it's the pitch shirt that they use in Japan that you've seen in the videos. Like it's really iconic to have one from Japan with my logos on it and all the other brands from a D1GP team. And it's not even close to fitting. This thing could have fit a 5'8", 350-pound man.
They don't build them long. They just build them out.
They don't build them long. And I'm like, what are your door heights at? Like, what's the deal here?
6
and
foot.
he's like, you don't fit in our country, basically. So that's funny.
Oh man,
that's
when
funny
you go
that
to
we
Japan,
drive.
I'm coming with you.
Oh, we have to. Like, we're going. As soon as COVID's gone, like there are so many. We've made so many connections there, which is I can't believe we're missing all the benefits of what international sales as a racing company actually means. This means
Yeah.
that we get to travel the world
Yeah, as
at,
a side benefit, it's huge. It's great. It's a huge
well,
perk.
does it,
Business
is
meeting,
it gonna,
tax write off.
is it gonna cost you, a bunch of money? Yeah, it's gonna cost you thousands, but it's also gonna benefit you 10,000s and for years to come
Mhm.
when you physically go to Japan and when they see you as the designer, the producer, and they know like the reason why the one dealer Takashi at Side 2 Enterprise in Japan, one of the best guys I've ever dealt with. This guy's amazing. When we sell to him, he literally will tell me something that like we're selling a ton of these curved tension arms for their S chassis because they love to just modify stuff there. They're all about the full kits, but they're more about the driver and the skill of the driver,
Yeah,
and then just modifying their stuff to do what it
to
needs to do.
suit
So
that.
they want 50 degrees and then they're happy. So they want these curved tension arms to miss, so the wheel misses the control arm and they can get their angle without rubbing, whatever. That's fine. We sell them for like 250 bucks. He comes to me and he's like, can you make a small change because my clients want to be able to pull their wheel further forward than what I had designed it for, let's say. And he tells me that over Facebook,
Mhm.
and within 24 hours, I have his version cut on the water jet and being shipped next week to his specification.
Yeah.
And then I've been dealing with him for a little over an hour now, or not an hour, a
An
year.
hour. Wow,
So
it's real
I'm
committed.
reading, I'm trying to read these questions at the same time. Um, so a little over a year now, and he is just amazed at the fact that he can give me feedback and directly or immediately after, he's getting, if there is a change that needs to be made, it's done. If
Yeah.
something needs to be addressed, it's done. If he needs extra parts, it's shipped. Like like he's never been able to talk to a company where he gets that kind of feedback. It just doesn't exist.
Mhm.
So I don't know what the dynamic difference is between the other three companies that we compete with, and if it's that we are still that much smaller, which I don't think to date this year. Like we're doing a lot of sales and our like it's great and everything. Our expenses are just ridiculously high, but
No, we
um
talked about it earlier. I'm like, you're like, yeah, we sold this much, and I was like, dude, that's incredible. You're like, but we spent this much. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, it's out of this world the amount of cash flow in and out that it
It's
takes to do this. It's great. Like you're like, wow, we did this many in sales. Like you just said, amazing. Like
yeah.
it's crazy that we were able to sell this much internationally, because like if we're talking internationally, the U.S. is considered international.
Mhm.
Canada, we're selling 9%. Like, come on, Canadians, we got to pick
There's
that
just
up.
not
Like,
enough of us. That's the thing. Canada's a
yeah,
tough market because we're so regional. We're so culturalized. We're like the U.S. Okay, anybody who hasn't driven to the U.S., here's how it goes: you get on the interstate, you go city, and then you go outskirts of city, which is just suburbs, and then you drive for a little bit, and then there's some farms, and then you get a town, and then another town, and then like a major metropolis, but not like a big city, and then a couple more towns, and then you get another major city again. That's how it
well, when
is.
you can sum up the population of Canada within just a couple cities like Toronto,
Yeah,
Montreal, uh,
Vancouver,
Vancouver, and like
Calgary.
you name
Yeah,
one or two more, and you're there. You're at
that's
like
it.
you're
Yeah,
at,
it's
you're at
diminishing
like
returns at
Canada's
that point.
population. Yeah,
All
like
of Canada
you're.
fits in California, if I'm not mistaken. The entire population of Canada is just the
Oh yes,
California market.
yeah, yeah,
So it's tiny,
yeah.
but like I said, we're regionalized. Like people from Quebec are incredibly different than people from Ontario versus Nova Scotia versus BC, Alberta and Saskatchewan are pretty much the same people. I'm just kidding. But like Manitoba, you know what I mean? So whereas in the States, like it flows into the next one. We are a very distinctive group. So it's like people in BC just may not like they may have their guy there. Right. I'm not talking about your case in particular, but like when you
Yes,
look at markets,
general.
they're like, I like to buy provincial very heavily. Because
No,
that's what we've
you're
got.
accurate in saying that. Like the U.S. is the U.S. and then Canada is the province.
Yeah.
Like you're Ontario, like Quebec. Like you just said, drifting in Quebec
Is
is
completely
like,
different. It's so different.
well, it's awesome.
It's
Drifting in Quebec is awesome.
yeah.
Like if you basically when I went to compete in the U.S. not having done DMCC yet. I went to the US first. I went to the US. We did really well. The reason why basically we won the first couple rounds and then we just lost two in a row. It was the first time ever driving this car that I had finished like 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Not that we had any issues with it really, but this was a couple years. This was 2 or 3 years ago. Like we're talking, this car was so fast and like well built to the level that we were competing at. It was like I couldn't slow this thing down, and I didn't know what to do to slow the car down. So I was like straightening out behind cars that had 300 horsepower, and I just couldn't do it. And I wasn't adapted enough as a driver to make the corrections to the chassis where I should have said, put 50 psi in the back. Like let's just
let's just
get it. We got to do it. And we didn't do that. Like I was running 25 psi, and I would run this guy's door, fall back, run the door again, fall back, run the door again, like instantly. And I was like, and then there's no chance to fix it. You just, and then obviously in your lead run, they pretty much have an inactive chase. They're so far behind. So
but you can't win that way. You're slicing off one half of it.
So you can do an extent. Like the first guy I competed against was luckily one of the best cars and drivers there.
Yeah,
and we won. We beat the best guy there, and then in the first run, and it was like you're feeling great. You're like, well, this is the guy that we didn't want to face, and we just beat him. So like, like we're going right to the top. We lose to a stock, like not a stock, but an LS1, 300 horsepower, very basic S13, and with that, it's like, okay, well, we just lost with a fully built car, 100% because we straightened out and did a bunch of stupid stuff in the chase where we couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I came up and I was just like, I don't know how to slow this thing down.
You're gonna punch through the guy. You're just gonna fucking punt him off the track. Yeah,
you're plowing the brakes. You're like the brakes are now overriding the car, even though your bias is at 70% or it's totally in the front.
Still scrubs so much speed, and
now
you're already
clutching.
Yeah.
Now you're clutching and you're handbraking. You're clutching and you're handbraking. The car is just like this. It's like this. It looks terrible, and you're like, you got 30 seconds, and then that's it. And you're like, wow, that sucked. When you just competed against the best guy there, nice, fluent runs. It was amazing. He's fast. We're fast. Worked out great. We won. Awesome. Guy's slow as hell. We had we just lost and made a fool of ourselves because we couldn't slow the car down. But as a spotter was new. Spotter had no idea what he was talking about. Well, it was Donnie. I don't know if you've ever met Donnie, but basically he's got no business. He had no business at the time spotting. He would be fine now. But like, he didn't.
No business.
Well, he's like you got to look at the car you're going against and understand that car has been running a shallow line and super slow all day. So if you know that, air up the tires, slow her down, give them some space on initiation because you know you're still going to be able to catch up, and then that's how you solve the problem. You adapt and you got to know though. You got to know, and we didn't know. We didn't know. We just go up and we're like, we're gonna run this guy's door. No, you're not. You're gonna run through this guy's door if you stay on the gas.
Attempt that at 25. Like.
So that's what happened there.
This is learning by mistakes. You would not have learned any of this shit if you didn't make mistakes. Back to like conversation one. It's the only
what I was saying from saying that in the U.S. Back to the point.
Yes, to Quebec.
When then I went to Quebec, I'm watching these drivers and becoming friends with these drivers. They're starting to realize who we are. They're buying our kits. They're getting involved. Luckily, my one employee, Chris, speaks fluent French. Well, he's from Quebec, so obviously he speaks fluent French. Luckily, he's there because I can't talk to any of these guys, but they're all amazing drivers.
They're incredible.
They push the limits. They push the limits of their cars every single time. They're running 160, 170 kilometer hour entry speed bank tracks. Like these guys, if they went to the US at this shootout that I was at, they would have just waxed everybody pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And going to Quebec, I was like, well, yeah, Quebec is like you compete in Ontario. It's like, what are we racing at Cayuga? It's just like maybe 100 kilometer hour entry speed.
Yeah.
And it's the small, like it sucks, like it's no good. So luckily Quebec has the level of driving and the level of tracks that if you run DMCC and you're in Quebec, and you go to the US, you'll be fine. You'll be totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Take it from me, who's been in both, you guys would be totally fine. So luckily, Tommy Lemaire is going to prospect. He doesn't have the same issues that I'm going to have with coming back to taking care of two kids while being on lockdown and running a business.
Mm-hmm.
So he's young. He's an incredible driver. He's going there. We were going, like, we're sponsoring him. He's running all of our products. So it would, like, based on how COVID happens, like, plays out in the next 2 months, I'll have a car ready. I'll have a car ready to go over the border and compete. Whether or not
You can go
it's
over
going
the
to
border.
happen is going to be the game changer, because basically Tommy and I would be going over in a sense together, pitting together, driving together, and it would be insane. Like, these he is one of the best drivers I've seen, both US and Canada, and then myself, I can adapt and I can change and whatever. Like, Tommy's got so much seat time, like, you can't even touch the guy because all he does is drive and drive and drive every single day. He runs a drift school, he runs a rally school, he teaches people how to drive
Yeah,
supercars. Like, it's
drives
just
for
what
a
he
living.
does.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this guy, you can't touch him behind the wheel, which is awesome because he's going to clean up and it's going to be amazing. Like, I'm excited for him, and I'm glad, like, he got the pro license from our event
Really?
because he won our event.
Oh,
He
right.
actually,
Yeah.
and we did a double elimination, and he lost to Dave Briggs in the first round,
Oh, I
which is
didn't know that.
insane. So Tommy got his Pro 2 license by battling back from the losers bracket,
Wow.
having to win twice as many battles to win the full event. And then he had to beat Dave Briggs 2 times in the finals because Dave got there without losing. So Tommy is going to be an amazing driver when it comes to FD, because we're, like, not only are we used to running, like, we do not run 255s in DMCC, like, we're 265, 285, like,
Yeah.
we're significantly faster already than what Pro
What Pro
2's
2
limits
was.
are.
Yeah.
And the tracks themselves are either comparable or faster. Like, if you're talking about, like, St. Croix,
Yeah.
like, you're going at 160 to 170 um, into a bank corner with no wall around the edge. I don't know if a wall is scarier or no wall is scarier, because if you go over into the grass, I flirted with it. There's a
It's
picture on
not a
my
good time.
Facebook where I'm in the dirt and still floored, and my front wheel is about 2.5 feet off the ground because the dip on the other side of this bank going at 160 is grass, and then it's trees. So you go into the grass, you could pretty much just die. So I don't know what's worse. I mean, if there was a wall there, I would have been in pretty big trouble as well. But if there's a wall there, it's kind of different
You can replace
dynamically.
those
Which,
parts, then you can, like, center punching
no,
the
like,
car.
mentally, it's different. There's, like, the way that you drive
Well, and it's
and
easier to
how.
spot too. You're not looking for something way far
Exactly.
ahead. Your reference point is right fucking there. So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to try and angle, like, forward and out. You can just glance over and be like, I'm at the wall. But
I'm just gonna read a couple of these
yeah, man.
questions.
It was a good flood. I feel bad because it's like we could probably just do an entire show going through questions.
Oh yeah, it's just we're talking about Tommy. People
That's good.
already know who he is.
I haven't seen him. Yeah, I haven't seen him drive. Is there much media out on him or?
He's got a pretty decent page on social media. It's TLO Drift School. That's what his drift school is called.
Okay.
And yeah, he updates it pretty often. Like, if you follow him, he's drifting every day at ICAR, which is an airport.
Yeah.
In Quebec somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Hmm.
But I know it's like 4 hours away from me. So we're supposed to be going there, but I'm actually renting Shannonville next weekend for some ice drifting. We've already plowed it.
Nice.
We're posting a video tomorrow because it's my birthday next weekend, and we're renting the track and having like 10 or 15 guys come out, and we're going to be ice drifting. We got studded snow tires. We're ready to go. So that's just going to be, we're going to run our I have a 350Z that's relatively stock other than the FDF suspension bits that are on it. And yeah, we're just going to have a party drifting in the snow, which I've been just dying to do. The only place where we could go is Quebec, and that's 4 hours minimum to ICAR to drive And then it's one of those, like, I come back, yeah, you just like, you throw kids in there. You can't be driving 4 hours one way to drift for 3 hours, then 4 hours back
No,
the the other way. It just doesn't
it
work. Like,
doesn't
it
make
just doesn't.
sense. Yeah.
Like, so that's, I'm constantly in an uphill battle when it comes to um getting stuff done. But as you like, there's really that, when if anyone complains or anyone has excuses, like, you don't, unless there's some sort of innate disability that hinders you, like,
Just
excuses are excuses. You can just do it and get it done. Like, there's so much time in a day that I do run out, but
I was gonna say there is, but there definitely isn't. But I know what you mean. You can get a lot done, but it goes quick.
yeah, like, I will spend a lot of time and get basically just a control arm designed, and you've spent 12 hours on it. So you can definitely see where people can get discouraged if they don't think they have enough time to do something. But then you check your Call of Duty time played, and it says 15 days time played on Xbox. You're like,
Yeah.
did you really not have enough time? I think you did. If you got 15 days played online or something like that. It's pretty funny to see accumulatively how much time can be wasted, and your phones even give you a reminder now. You
Yeah.
have
Go
two
try.
hours and 50 you have 2 hours and 50 minutes of screen time, where your eyes were focused on the screen. Like, it actually tells you if you were looking at it or not.
Yeah.
Like, that's some serious data that you can say, wow, the amount of stuff that I could have done in the amount of time I was looking at my phone screen. But I mean, when it comes to me, like, I use my phone for a lot of stuff, so I can't really go off of that.
It's tough. Like the distractions are always there. I live on my phone. My company is my phone. But like
Exactly.
then I'm also at this computer, which based on all the puke RGB behind me, is also very well equipped for video games. So like I constantly battle it where it's like it's right fucking there. I literally have to click twice, and I'm shooting people. So I know what you
Hmm.
mean, but like I really don't. In all honesty, I don't play that much. My friends make fun of
Well,
me
that
constantly.
depends. Well, that depends on if you like it. It wouldn't matter if you did or didn't, as long as you're getting what you need to get done.
Yeah,
Done. That's it.
but
That's it.
yeah,
Like, you can
it's
do whatever you want. It's
do,
the people that are not doing anything, and then they're complaining about not having the time to do it.
yeah,
But then there's the but where you have 15 days worth of time played or 25 days worth of time played on Call of Duty. And that's where there might be a self-reflection problem that you need to deal with,
yeah.
because there's,
It's look at yourself in the mirror situation. Like look at what you're doing all day, and then wonder why you are where you are.
yeah, there's real world examples of the amount of success that one person can have, and they do it in the same time slot that is allotted to every single person on this planet. And we all have different challenges, but there's only so many excuses. So,
Yeah. Do you? I got okay. So this is kind of a thing I've been struggling with, and something I often ask other people that are successful. Right. I would very much consider you a successful person. Obviously, there is more success to come, but you have gotten to a point where, and this is where my question comes in. Do you have that imposter syndrome? Do you have that like not that I don't think it's real, but like it's not as big of a deal as I think I'm making it. Like when was the last time you stepped back and went, "Holy fuck. This is what I'm doing every day is making this." Like did you have you had that moment yet? I figured maybe like the new shop or dealing with Japan or something like that might be that like what in the fuck
I'm
is
a
happening?
I'm a really interesting type of personality where, like, I don't get emotional about like anything.
Yeah, I know.
So it's kind of a flaw. It could be a blessing and a curse in the same thing. But it's like, if I win a competition, I'll be happy about it. 100%, I'm happy about it. Are you going to be able to tell? Maybe not. Like, maybe not. So have I had like I don't know. I oftentimes get like weird reflections if I'm not usually alone for long periods of time. I'm always doing something,
Yeah.
and there's usually people there. Like, especially if I'm at the shop, if I'm working there, I'm either focused on what I'm doing or somebody else is there. So there's very little time where I'm like
Able
home
to
alone.
reflect.
I'm not doing anything and I'm thinking, and you know what? Not that long ago, if that's like to simple answer to your question, just like a couple days ago, basically, I would say like I'm literally scanning something and then I'm drawing something and then I'm selling something. And it's 100% if I want to make more money, I do this, I do this, I do this, and it's done. It's not like I have to, well, I do have to put in a lot more time, but like I can create,
Yeah.
you can create money, and it's not like like I'm getting rich. Like this is like if I design an angle kit, it's going to cost me thousands, way
And it's a
more
gigantic
to
risk.
develop it.
Yeah.
Way more to develop it than I will in the first 10 sales make back. So it's constantly, once you surpass 10 sales, you've just paid off the development time and the initial material cost. Because when we machine these parts, like all the misalignment spacers, we're machining these parts in hundreds or thousands, not in quantities of 20 or 40, where that's the amount that you may need to build 10 kits. We're making thousands. So like we're putting out thousands of dollars in the anticipation that we're going to sell
Yeah.
50 to 100 of these kits per year. And that's a huge risk. Like we're not making any money at all on a newly developed kit for a while. So the main realization I had was a couple days ago, and it's because a guy came in asking. Basically, he's seen our social media and whatever, and he had a problem or a part that he needed remanufactured and produced. We have the capability to make just about anything at this point. Anything that has to do with welding, designing, fabricating, we have the tools to do it. We build suspension components for race cars. This application was 100% not related to suspension or race cars. It was like a plumbing application or something. And when he came in, he didn't have drawings. He didn't have anything to do with like he didn't give me
No
anything that
technical
could tell me.
specifications. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not like these are the dimensions. This is what it has to be. It was just a part. And he's like, I think I can sell this. And I said, do you need drawings for this? And he's like, yes. And I said to him, our shop rate's $100 an hour, and it has to be. Like that seems like a lot. It has to
It
be.
has
The
to be.
overhead on the overhead on shops like this is insane. So like we're constantly running at a fixed rate of $250 per hour cost. Like if we're not making more than that, we're losing money. So that's just like very basically what it costs to run a shop with 10 people and pay all the employees
Just like thinking
and
about it, you're
everything
like,
that
oh my god, that's
it's
crazy.
insane.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So when he came in and he was like, well, can you do a drawing for me? And I was like, I'm looking at this part and I'm like, I could draw this up in 5 minutes. Like, to be honest, it was a pretty simple part. And then he starts asking all these questions like, I know nothing about what this part does, but I can tell him everything on how it should be made. And he's like wowed at the fact that I can tell him like this should be machined rather than welded. We want to reduce the human error because it has a pressure. It has up to 60 psi inside of this part, and he had like 8 welds on it. I'm like, if you don't have a licensed welder, this part isn't going to work. Like if you've got a guy that's not covering the pinholes on the end of his weld,
Yeah.
it's going to leak through this hole. You're going to have a huge headache on your hands when it comes to selling this to the public. And he's like, well, what should you do? And I'm like, well, we should CNC machine this part out of this material, and then we should do this and drill this, and I bet you'd cut your cost by this much. And he was like, he's like 45 years old, been in business for a while. He might have been older than that. And he was like, me and my partner never would have thought of that. So then he's now just going to pay me to make the drawings, create this part. And if he wants us to manufacture it, awesome. If he wants to take the drawings and go elsewhere, also awesome.
Yeah.
I get paid for my time. That's totally fine. And it's like the avenues that I could take now with what this business has given me in terms of the
Like a
power to
flexibility. Yeah.
create flexibility, sure. That's where it's like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. The stress and the loss of sleep and the amount of times that I've made mistakes and had to correct them and do all kinds of stuff is coming to being worth it. Like
Yeah.
it's been a long journey though. Like we're talking, they say it takes 5 years to even get to that point. We're 3 years incorporated. We're 5 years with the name.
Operational. Yeah.
Sure. And the first couple of years, like again, I was just weekend stuff. Like it wasn't anything crazy. So like incorporated, I would 100% give it another 2 years before we are comfortable and profitable and a well-oiled machine with every procedure and everything in place. Like we're constantly working on people need spare parts. Where are they going to buy them? These individual pieces. Well, we created exploded views of each kit. We put these spare parts on a spare parts web part of our website, and then you break that all down, and then they can buy things individually up to like 50 cents for a washer. And this stuff takes time. Like if I'm
Yeah,
paying
those
one of my
procedures are
guys,
expensive to develop.
if I'm paying one of my guys to do what I just said for one kit, we're looking at 20 to 40 hours of labor. Like this
Yeah.
is going to cost me thousands of dollars just to make a section of my website where they can buy a part that costs 50 cents and we make 10 cents off of it. Like it's like,
Yeah,
but the
but
convenience of it
yeah.
is what we're doing it for. So like, do we have enough profitability to invest 40 hours per kit just so that someone can buy spare parts? Not really, but we need to do it. So it's like we're doing it gradually. So like on the website right now, we've got like the base, like we've got our 350Zs, we've got our our S chassis, and I think we've got the RX-7, the Corvette. Like we've got some of the big hitter items that we look at our analytics, and we've sold 430 350 kits. We've sold like 190 S chassis kits. We've sold 75 Corvette kits. Like whatever.
Yeah.
Those are pretty accurate actually. But like
Oddly specific.
um, from that we're like, well, this is who's going to need spare parts first, like to
Yeah.
be honest. So then we invest the time and we go from there. And the one guy that we had doing it, we basically took him off of assembling parts, put him on that, then we got behind with assembling parts. Now he's back on assembling parts, and the spare parts section has to take a break. So if someone needs a spare part for their RX-7 kit, or somebody a kit that we didn't do yet, we get their email, we send them an invoice, it's good to go. Like
Mhm.
it's working, it's fine. Could we maintain a business like that where everybody has to email us and then
No.
we solve
No,
their
it'd be
problem?
because now you have to hire a
Now,
staff member
well,
just
no,
to deal
like
with that.
exactly. So
Yeah.
per capita per year, you'll end up spending the 40 hours or more on the emails, like answering those when
That's yeah. That's the thing people forget about is the investment in time savings. Like the amount of automation stuff I even set up with my own company and realizing how much money it saved me. Where it's like,
it's a yeah, it's a time, it's a over time. And then the analytics of stuff now is insane. Like especially if you're using e-commerce sites where you can see over time what's happening. Everything has to be related to time. Everything
yeah,
is literally related
you,
to time. So
your analytics and mine are completely different. Yours, like, you're looking at the parts and stuff like that. I'm looking at the people, like the data that the internet collects on you and who you are
no,
as a
I look at the
social.
people,
Yeah,
the conversion rates of a customer. Like,
yeah,
why are we getting a 0.7 when we should be getting a 1%?
mm-hmm.
Like, we look into that. We look at where they're coming from, how many clicks it took to get there. Like, we look at all that stuff as well, because one of the biggest things being in Canada is that at checkout, this is hilarious. Like, you'll probably get a crack out of this one. The checkout has to be in Canadian.
Yeah,
Why? That's just the way it is. If you don't have a US bank and a bank address and all this, you can't have USD currency at your checkout. There's no app that'll make it happen. I've been on a number of chats with them. Maybe you could help with it, maybe you couldn't, but
we might be able
I've
to
been
talk
in
later.
I've been in so many conversations on chats and Shopify tech support and whatever.
Is
They're like,
that's who you're through Shopify?
yeah.
Then
So
no,
we
there's not. Sorry. Yeah, as far as I know, as far as I know.
Well, as far as you know, is as far as I know, because they
Exactly.
say that you can get it USD right up to the point of checkout, which,
Yeah.
dude, like today, 2 emails just today, where they will. So the amount of people that email me and say, why did the price go from 1593 to 1920? That's exactly the email I got. You know what? 2 minutes before I got on this podcast with you, I actually responded to the email. And I believe their order came through immediately after I told them it didn't increase, it just switched currency. So I'm getting let's say I'm getting 1 to 2 of these per day. How many are not emailing me and just leaving? Probably more than that.
You
Probably more than that.
you should be able to yeah,
Do you know how many? Do you know how many
I think there is a way to
warnings?
solve this problem though.
Do you know how many warnings we put on our page that says in like 8 different ways that it's in Canadian, like big red banner. It's right beside the number, like it says
Yeah.
CAD at the checkout. Like we couldn't put it in your face anymore, and it's still missed. And this isn't saying anything against Americans because it's always Americans that are asking.
Yeah, well,
It's that
they want to know
well
what's up.
the world revolves around America, and they're used to buying from, like, let's say they're buying from Summit Racing. They buy from Summit Racing, they're going to, like, nothing's going to change currency wise. It's going to ship from Ohio and it's going to go to Arizona, and
Yeah.
like it's all just within
Yeah, there's some
themselves. Like,
tax regulations that change. There might be a state tax that's applied, but
sure,
that's all
sure. Go to
automatic now in shipping
California.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah, go to California, get
100%.
destroyed. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Like
yeah.
you can't sell something that's a weird metal because it's gonna cause cancer or something. I don't know. But the currency thing has it's. I was so psyched when I realized. Oh yeah, like a comment from Alex.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Just
that's a huge benefit to you for sure on that end of things, where people are like, "Oh, it's actually like cheaper."
Well, it isn't, because I feel like you're grabbing the U.S. customer, and they see the price. Like the biggest comparison is what all these companies tried to match with our regular Mantis kit for a 350Z. The price point was set, which this was really interesting when Trump got in and the tariffs increased. When I saw my competitors' prices go up, this was actually pretty funny when I actually watched it happen, like live, like next day.
The moment of, yeah.
It was funny. It was, oh, I'm not going to say it was funny, but I think it was funny because we build our own stuff. So like this had minimal effects on the price of that we're going to sell our kits at. But I saw what we were competitively pricing our kits at to match $850 US. In Canadian, it was like 1100 or something. And then all my competitors went to 950 US, like overnight.
Yeah.
Very There's a strong correlation between the tariffs and the price increase.
Pricing, yeah.
So then you can just automatically see what's going on. You're like, overseas, they're getting nailed 20%, 15 to 20% increase in sale price. I see what's happening. We didn't have to change, like we changed it, not directly, but we increased it like $50 because like our Heim joints, for example, the price of the Heim joints increased.
Yeah.
Because that's coming from the US. So stuff like that marginally increased for us, but it was like very small. Like our Heim joints are only 5 to 10% of the cost of the entire kit. So it was like, actually it's probably higher than that, but so it was marginally, rather. We lost
we
Instagram
crushed
again.
another Instagram video. Holy shit. Oh, keep going though, but yeah, I'm
Is that 2 hours? That's crazy.
that's already 2 hours, yeah.
So we know that they're getting the majority of their kits made overseas. They're doing very little, if anything, on this side of the water. And I forget the point of this was originally.
I'm not sure how we tangent off to this one.
We'd
There you go. I think I sent you the correct one. Did I?
You sent another.
Yeah, I think I sent another request. One sec.
I didn't get one.
Let's try that again. There you go. That's it. That's such a funny correlation though with the US checkout. Yeah.
So yeah, the US checkout, the biggest issue that we have with customers is that you're getting 1 to 2 emails per day, but then how many are actually just simply leaving the website? And probably, like, if I'm going to just rough it, I'm going to say double the amount that email us. Double are just going to leave, because you know how hard it is to captivate an audience with a video, let alone keeping them there to watch the whole thing. And then it's the same with a website. You got
dude, it's crazy.
Something weird happens, they just
Gone.
peace out. Like It's it's the weirdest thing. Like it's very minute. It barely like all they had to do was just read just a little bit past the number and it says those
This.
beautiful letters CAD, which means that you are going to save 25% off of that value. But the problem is that the US customers don't know that. They
Yeah.
aren't familiar with currency changes because everything revolves around America and they live in America, so they've never known different. Where we in Canada, we always look at the
We
currency.
have
Like
to. Yeah. It's a
we
constant
check out
problem.
we check out a summer racing. That baby better be in Canadian, or else I'm
Oh, I'm
way
fucked.
off on
Yeah.
what I'm
We're
about to
eating
spend.
ramen this week. Oh man. I
So yeah, it's we look at it all the time, but the Americans do not look at the currency. So when they see a price increase, they're like, something weird is happening. I'm peacing out. I'm going to the next website. I'm gonna buy something else. This is stupid. What happened? Whatever. So I'm glad that they're emailing us. Like I'm really happy. But then I'm seeing that this is a huge problem that's very consistent. How many are leaving the website? Probably double.
would it not be a price decrease for them though? When it's where are they seeing the increase at checkout because it's
So the
displaying
website,
USD
so the website shows in whatever
USD.
currency you want,
Right.
whatever currency you want.
Yeah.
So they oftentimes, and it selects based on your location. So they're gonna go on and they're gonna see it in USD. It's
Yeah.
great. Like a dual caliper bracket for a 350Z is showing at $185. Amazing price. When they go to checkout, it jumps up to 260.
But it's showing
It's the same.
Canadian. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we understand the problem, but they they don't.
Would a
So
currency exchange plugin or something like that to display what it would be in US somehow work? Like
so
to add to
I've
the checkout page?
yeah, I've plugged in a couple things and currently there was nothing available. Like this was probably a month ago.
Okay.
And they kept talking and talking and talking how all we want to do is display it and they won't even be mad if it's slightly off. Like they won't. Like the
Would just switching the entire site to only be Canadian remove the geographical location? Or are you concerned then that the price being higher would kick
yes.
people away? Okay. Hmm. And that would be a really shitty
So this is an excellent point made by Alex, which I've said it before. If they can't comprehend, but I mean I can't say that because I don't want to speak ill of customers that have
Yeah, I know what you're
just
saying.
failed to notice it. But like if you didn't realize it, maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe I don't want you to install the parts. It's kind of
It's
something
funny.
to.
It's funny, but I know what
It's
you're
funny.
saying.
That's all it is. It's just funny.
It's just funny.
It's funny that he said that because I've thought it
Yeah.
before. Now I've made stupid mistakes. We've all made stupid mistakes. When you're on a website, like you want it, like you're really looking for a flawless experience, and if you aren't getting it, then you just leave. Like I've had it where I went to go buy like somebody was selling a drone for this one website, random website was selling a drone for cheaper than what I had seen one before, and I was like, oh, I went on it. A little weird thing happened at the checkout or something, and I was like, I was
I'm
gone.
out.
I was out of there.
So
Like,
I just hired somebody that is her entire job now. I've brought her on, and all she does is she's a user experience expert. So she goes through websites and literally just goes, here's a stumble here, here's a problem with that. She's a specialist. She worked oh shit, I don't know if I can say. She worked on a very famous campaign for a large telecom company. And I'm like, that's it. It's all I need to hear. Like you're hired. I'll bring you on. And we're currently dealing with that with a website for an art gallery where they're driving a ton of traffic. It's staying forever, not converting. And they've thrown ads at it. They've thrown all this. And I brought her in and it was like a 2-hour review. She dug into it, looked into their analytics. She's like, oh, your problem right here. And it was a weird coding issue that was causing the checkout to load too slowly. And it wasn't like, it wasn't significantly slow. It was just noticeably slower than the rest of the pages. And that was it. That's all it took. People are spooked. Gone.
yeah, it's too bad. Now, luckily, we are in a business where like you're buying a pretty niche product, so like
Yeah,
you can't just
you've
go to the
made the
next.
decision. You've
You can't just
researched and
go
made
to
a
the
decision.
exactly. The reason why you're there is because you are aware.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ooh, I like that.
it's not like we're selling a drone where you could buy from 8,000 different websites.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling an angle kit, and there's literally three other options.
Yeah.
If you want to be comparative, there's three other options. So it's like I get that we like the people probably aren't just leaving and going to a different page, but I think some are for sure, and it's definitely a problem because we get a lot of emails about it. So,
Hmm.
um,
That's interesting. Yeah,
anyways,
I will look into that. I will do some digging on that for you and see if
Shopify.
I may not, but I have a few clients and more clients switching over to Shopify. So that'd
Shopify
be
is great, but we've spent like I would show you what it's cost us,
oh
and
yeah no I'm fully aware. I'm fully based on your numbers.
massive,
I'm fully aware of how much money that's costing you.
massive. Like I could have paid somebody full time all year long to
Yep.
operate a customly designed website and just have them sit there and just
WordPress.
work on it every
I
day.
mean, I'm just we'll talk later, but
Yeah.
that might be something I can help you with. But yeah,
But Shopify is so user
it's
friendly for
so
anyone
nice.
that like if I want to add a product, we're talking 2 minutes, it's up, it's done.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna
And it's
duplicate this one.
and it's well integrated with like Google searches within a couple of days. It's already coming up on the pages. Like it's
Yeah,
done. It's well. Like it's like if you had to do that from a custom site instead, like the amount of changes that we're constantly making, it would be pretty tough. But then if I had a full time guy,
it doesn't matter.
maybe it wouldn't be. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter
it's
because we're
it's tough
paying
to
for a
say.
full time guy. But
Yeah,
I don't know that our audience is as interested in this
I
as
know.
you
I'm
and I
sorry,
both
guys.
are.
Yeah, I know. We're like right into the marketing, back into the marketing side again.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
what? How are you deciding what chassis to jump on? Like, is it just like people? You're just like, look, the demand is here. Like, what? How did you decide? You said the FDRX7. That seemed like a strange one to me. Kind of out of character for you guys.
I've been asked enough times, and then the car presented itself as an
Okay,
opportunity. So,
it just made sense at
like,
that point,
I have Ricky Craig's car. I don't
right?
know if you know who that is,
Yeah, I know Ricky,
but so
Mr.
he's
Asphalt.
got his FD at my shop. I mean, the chassis is there for getting a full cage. We're building the chassis from the ground up. We just put the winner's quick change in, modified the whole rear subframe. So someone said business stuff is interesting.
We'll do. Maybe we
Well,
should
that's
just
good.
start a business podcast. Yeah.
You could, yeah, you could
Yeah.
for
I just
sure.
another one. Fuck. Just put it on the list.
Um, so the FD is like if I develop the parts for Ricky, Ricky is willing to pay for my development time in making something that's special for him
Mm,
because he likes having unique and custom parts
yes.
for his stuff. And if I'm going to do that for him, that means that I can still give him a really good price where he gets an amazing billet machined knuckle and all this other stuff.
Oh,
And
that's gonna be badass.
I have dimensionally everything that I need to produce a kit after the fact. So if he's covering my upfront cost by making a fancy kit for him,
Why
why
not?
not? Like,
Yeah.
why not? I'm gonna make rear control arms. The funny thing is when you make so many parts for these cars, like I'm talking about, like if you go down our rows of shelves and the amount of machine parts that I have made, we're in the 500 plus category of different pieces that you can't buy. Like you
Jesus.
can't buy them anywhere. So like if I have a threaded boss that's this long, I'll have another threaded boss that's this long. Totally different purpose that they serve. And then you do enough of these, and then you can pretty much build anything with the stuff that you have. So when we go
Already
to
there.
develop the control arms, like the rear multi-link for the FD, I'm going to my shelf. I took the measurements, scanned the parts. That's what you need to do to get your bushing widths and your lengths and everything else. But then from there, I could build the whole thing with just what I have on the shelf, like no
Yeah.
problem. Like I can take, I'm like, okay, so the traction arm on an FD is 11 and a half inches long. Guess what? I got a 12-inch threaded body that I use for my toe arm on my 350Z. Go to the lathe, quarter inch off either end, boom, done. There it
Perfect.
is.
Yeah.
If I wanted to sell the kit, I could easily spend 10 minutes because I have hundreds of the toe arms for the 350. I could spend 10 minutes and face quarter inch off each end, and then I have 10 sets of traction arms for an FD.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
the amount of overlap that you get when you have 23 chassis built, developed, and made, you start to get into like when I designed the suspension for the rear of like an S550 Mustang, I'm like, so my spacers need to be 28 millimeters wide. They got to have an M14 hole or an M12 hole through it, and I'm going to use a standard 3/4 Heim joint. Go to my bin. I've got 70 different sizes of misalignment spacers. I pick up two, put them together. Boom, there it is. Like
Perfect.
I don't even need to buy any. I don't even need to get it. So I have the thing is I have tens of thousands of these spacers machined for the various kits that we have. So even if it was close, I could just face it because they're all stainless steel. Like I don't need to like replate them or coat them or anything.
Yeah.
I can just face it down to the right size and then boom, it's
Ready to
done. I
go.
could do that. So like we're at a point where developing times and everything is becoming pretty efficient and pretty easy. This is where I'm saying like the sky becomes the limit in terms of development because if I take dimensionally what I know for drifting, I can apply it to grip driving and different like if specifically for doing Mustang stuff, like we have an angle kit for each year now and each chassis model. I can now take dimensionally what I know there, and Mustangs are huge in drag and they're huge
Yeah.
with a middle-aged guy that wants to take it to the track. So
Yeah.
like we're now pertaining to a audience that drifters don't even associate with, but we can sell to them
Yeah.
just as easily, if not more easily, because they are not used to having like when we make drift parts, like it's cheap, unfortunately. Like it's
Mm.
cheap. We're competing like when I'm making not angle kits, because I told you there's only four main companies that are making angle kits. We're all relatively priced the same. I'm talking about rear adjustable control arms,
Yeah.
which are huge. Everybody needs them. Like we're competing against 15 to 20 different Chinese companies that are selling the same arm for $60 and
Yeah.
we're selling it for 280. Why? Well, the $60 one is definitely gonna fail. It's definitely gonna break.
Mm.
But then there's a whole lot of middle in between companies that are making something that won't break. It just may not last very long, and so on and so forth. So we sell stuff for really cheap in drifting, and we shouldn't be, but we are because that's what the market demands. So when we go and move from drifting, which we're slowly transitioning to going to racing and grip driving, because why wouldn't you? You have all the
It's
dimensions and
it's
everything
all
that you
there.
need.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you jump up to road racing and the Champ Car series and all these other um, like time based types of racing. You're getting into a market where they don't really care about the price of the product. They just want to make sure that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
they also
consistently
don't
works.
ask and they also don't ask questions. So this is like
Well, because
as
they
a
know they don't need they don't they're not they don't they know their alignment specs. There's no like what should
as
I
a
set it to or
business,
anything else.
this is actually where you want to be and not catering to adjustable rear suspension for drifters. So if what drifting is doing for me in terms of a business, because I've told you, we make a decent amount of money, we spend a lot of money. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's nobody getting getting super rich here, but there like the possibilities to grow the company to be a profitable company is there, and with a profitable company comes better everything for the customer. So it's not like
Yeah.
anybody's getting greedy, it's just going to get better for everybody. So
Well,
when you
just
look at when
I was gonna say it just means that like you then get better tools and a bigger crew and faster delivery times like as you progress, which that trickle down to the drifters is just more ability to create and do and work because
yes
the
which
drifting is more of the passion project, right? Than the the grip
exactly
stuff you're just not as involved with. Not that you have any issue with it. And sorry if I'm speaking on your behalf, but like you know, I mean, for me,
accurate.
yeah, for even for what I'm doing, there are definitely things where I'm like, you know what, this is not what I really, really want to be doing. Looking at data and analytics of marketing is not necessarily what I love to do every day, but that
Right.
allows me to do all the fucking camera shit and everything else in the back, which I can make money off of for sure, but it's just way harder to. But I really like doing it. So
Hmm.
all of the website shit is it's great, but it's not what I want to be doing all day.
It's the same. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So if drifting for a business model is a stepping stone to greater things business wise, I'll
Yeah.
always love making drift parts and I will continue to make drift parts. But if it's the stepping stone to go on to different avenues. Again, we're talking about business again, but
Yeah, I know.
it's as a company, we're going to be catering to a lot more types of racing and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So
that's good though. That's cool. It's wicked. Um, oh, I do have one question. Where does the mantis come from? Where I've never asked you. I kind of understand the FDF, but where did mantis, like, why is it like the mantis
so
arm?
my yeah, so my first employee I ever had and myself were good friends at the time. He no longer works for me, but we were looking at what I was coming up with for the control arm. I'm like, basically, you got to make a structural arm that's good and tough, and then at the time of designing it, we got to lighten it up and then stress it and make sure that it's not going to fail. Lighten it up some more. You do these tests, you
Yeah,
check your loads and whatever. What I came up with ended up looking a lot like a mantis, praying mantis's arm,
yeah, yeah. I
like
know we
this.
both do. Yeah,
So it like the way that the arm bolted to the control arm bolted to the tension arm. This was for the 240. Like I made this like 7 years ago.
yeah.
Just the way that it looked like that. And then we even had like Photoshop. People would Photoshop like the two arms like on a mantis
Oh,
with
that's
the
cool.
head. And then as a slogan, I have no relation. Like I don't love a praying mantis. Like it's just a bug. Like I don't have enough. I don't have
It
anything to
just
do with
worked.
praying
Yeah,
mantis. Like I don't, if I see one, I probably won't pick it up. Maybe I'll take a picture of it or something. I don't know. But it just kind of looked like it. So that's why it's and then mantis as like just a word. Like it just as a word, it just sounds like you could label it, you can brand it, you could sell it. Like
yeah.
it's
I
just
agree. It has a feeling to it. The word has a feeling.
and it's really caught on as a trend where people are like, is it a mantis kit or did you get a mantis kit? Like people are saying it as if
Yeah,
it's a thing,
yeah.
as if it's a thing.
Yeah, you turned into
And it's like,
Kleenex. Well, WiseFab, that was it with WiseFab, right? That's what people asked,
sure.
and you were just now hearing less of that and more of Mantis, which is obviously a good thing. It's yeah,
Yeah.
you're
So
taking that over.
so that's pretty cool that just like you said, like vice grips, like Kleenex, like these are not
Yeah,
what the name of the tool is. That's what the
no,
name
it's
of
a
the
cotton
brand is,
swab.
and they branded it well enough to call it. So anytime I want a vice grip, it may very well not be the brand vice grip. It
Yeah,
probably isn't, to be honest. It's
yeah,
probably something
Stanley
else.
or something.
But everybody calls it vice grips.
Yeah, that
Does it make
tool.
sense? But there's only one brand that's called vice grips.
Mhm.
I don't know why I keep looking at my screen when I'm looking at it as I'm talking to you, and then I'm not looking at the camera anymore.
That's all good.
But yeah, so it's the exact same as what you said. A Kleenex is like a tissue, but the company Kleenex just completely. Do you have a Kleenex? It's like,
Yeah,
well, no, I have a tissue.
what the fuck's
So
that?
same thing. So, anyways, Mantis kit's pretty sweet.
It does. It is
It's
sweet. It is a good name.
and then it caught on, and then people like want to like be affiliated with it. They want to say I have it. They want to put it on their car, and that's cool. Like that's
Mhm.
really cool to me. That literally came from the most odd or strange way of coming up with a name of just basing it off of something that looks like something else, and let's call it that and run with it. That's what happened. So it's a good question.
You're gonna have to go down to like. Are you gonna go to other bugs and shit later on? Be like the Beatles skid pad or something like that.
Yeah, like
Skid pan.
sure, we could. I mean,
Just dive right into it.
I mean, if you were making something like kayaks or something, you could. Because I used to use these things called jitterbugs. It was like a
Oh,
small
right, right.
kayak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know those. With like open
I
top.
don't know that.
I think I
Yeah,
like drunk fell out of one at one point in
a
time.
jitterbug exactly. So I
Yeah.
don't know that we can take the branding and name it with different bugs, but like we, I mean, you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
like so basically I'm calling the kits because now that we have the scanner and now that we have um, the ability to basically make adapters to complex shapes that have no square reference point whatsoever. I would normally measure these points based off of a single reference point. So I would have my knuckles on the table and I would have a single reference point and it's a granite table where everything's super level. So you can measure from the table, and that is a reference plane. So I can take my vernier or my scale, and I can measure up to different points, jot those down. So I have all my dimensions I've needed from this plane. And then I can make another plane or another reference point that I can draw from. And as long as I have 2 points, I know where intersections are, and then I can create the knuckle. But now I can just scan it, and then I can create the planes on all of these surfaces that are not square to each other. I can create cones and tapers and cylinders and mark holes and do it within a couple minutes. And because of this, I can now make these mini mantis kits that are just adapters. So, like for example, if you were to install a mini mantis kit on the 370Z, the only thing you need to buy is a $250 adapter that we've made because we scan the knuckle. You can bolt it on. I know it's going to fit because I scanned it and I put it on in the computer. When I sell it, it's going to give you a marginal increase in angle. You're going to get 15% more steering angle.
Nice.
And for a lot of people, for $250 to learn how to drift, that's all they need. That's all they want.
That market's arguably bigger than the actual mantis kit market is.
So we're making these kits now because of our new ability to develop bolt-on adapters. And this is opening up a new window, but we call it a mini mantis kit. Like we could have named it the ant kit or something if you wanted to.
I mean, you got well, you're sticking with the
but we're calling it the mini mantis. I think it has a good ring to it. So
mega mantis.
Yeah, and then the mega. That's exactly right. So the mega is the big unit, but we started with the mega because we made a regular, like, anyways, I'm not going to go into all the different names of those things, but we're now making mini mantises for like every chassis.
Nice.
And that's basically, I've been working on that quite a bit. So Corvettes C5, C6, C7 are going to have mini kits. And then originally the full Corvette kit, in order to run it, you had to buy the upper, the knuckle, and the lower that we made. You couldn't like just change the knuckle and then keep the arms or run a different company's arms. But we're gonna start adapting our products to allow for you to do that, to allow for you just to upgrade the lowers. And let's say you had modified knuckles, but you need better lower control arms. You can buy the lowers from us, and they will go on
to that knuckle,
aftermarket knuckle or modified knuckle. And this is kind of important because as long as like it's like, how are you going to like we're at a very important stage in our business of development where we've got to figure out what we are and stick to that. So right now, are we a company that makes full angle kits? Yes. Are we a company that makes bolt-on adapters? We weren't, but we're starting to be.
Yeah.
And I like it. I think it's
important kind of come full circle.
I think it's important that you don't just buy a full lock kit that has all the kinematics changed and improved to perform in the best mechanical way possible, but it may not handle well at all. So as a driver, you're going to learn the wrong way just to start. And then from there, you're going to develop bad habits and so on and so forth. So if anything, it's like you should almost have a section of your website where it's like the number of years you've been driving between 1 and 3, between 3 and 5, and then 5 plus.
Yeah.
And then 5 plus. And then you have like blogs and things and information there. Like it's almost like the limits of it are limitless. It's just like you just gotta do it. And then this is where I run out of time. And this is where I actually have that excuse of there isn't time to do stuff like that. Like if for you to do that, it's just what I said, that section of a website to have 1 to 3 and then 3 to 5, it's going to take you hours to even come up with how you're going to lay it out.
Introduce that topic. The customer flow of entering that portal and then being hours.
Like
because you also don't want to insult people either, right? That's the other thing. 100%. Like, because you could easily piss some people. Like, oh, you fucking insult! I'm not going to buy this shit. Yeah.
Sure. But if you're if you're drifting in your first year with a full blown angle kit, you're gonna have developed bad habits
I
based
agree.
on that.
We overbuilding is such a is a problem that like I just everybody talks about it, but you just can't stress it enough. It's such a big problem. Oh, thanks Google. Hang on. Problem solved. Yeah, overbuilding is such a financial burden, first of all, but like the amount of money, the amount of seat time you can get for the cost of a dog box is incredible. Like
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully
it's
you don't blow up
incredible.
your transmissions, but yes,
But yeah, I think that like you can, I mean, it's just it's budgeting. Like drive within your means, right? There's so much burnout in guys who leave drifting because they spend beyond their means and burn themselves out completely in a financial sense, and then they're fucked. Drive within your means. If that means that you got to run a fucking BMW with a welded diff and a decent rad in it for 2 seasons, do it. And
you
slowly,
gotta,
yeah, you
you
have
gotta,
to.
because like for example, so I didn't overbuild my car when I first started drifting,
I mean,
but
you kind of overbuilt your car when you first started drifting, but
I did. What car did you think I first started drifting?
oh, that's a good question. Yeah, maybe I don't know what your first car was. I just
No,
assumed.
I said that my first car in the first time I drove that S14 at that competition was the first time I had driven my overbuilt S14, but it
So
was not
I
overbuilt
guess the
for
one
me.
before that was the carbureted one, correct?
I've
Was there a
never
car
owned a
before?
carbureted car.
Oh, okay. I thought you had a carbureted V8 on that one.
No.
Okay.
So it started out with a S13
Yeah.
9 years ago.
Okay. So way, way before my time. I apologize. Then I
First
made an
first
assumption.
thing well, I wasn't drifting. So first thing I did with it was I bought the shell for $400, crazy to see
Yeah.
an S13 for $400, pretty clean. Fixed all the rust. It's just coming out of high school, so it was just like a project. I put an RB25 in it when putting RB25s in cars was not a thing really. It wasn't popular. Very little information on it. Nobody made motor mount swap kits for it. Nothing. Like there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a half cut of a Skyline and took it home. Bought it for $2,500. Paid $500 for the or $400 or whatever for the S13. And after I took the engine out and all the bits that I wanted, I sold the rest of the parts to a guy who crashed his Skyline for $1,600.
Hmm.
So I'm now $900 into my RB25 full transmission swap into my S13, and from there I made my own motor mounts. I did everything that you need to do to put it in an S13. A couple people had done it. You could do a little bit of research and find pictures and whatnot, but there was nothing as far as like you buy this and then it'll go in
Yeah.
to your car. You couldn't do that. There's
Just
nothing
didn't
like that.
exist
So
yet.
I did that swap. Long story short, it worked. Took a bit of time, learned a lot of stuff. I drove it for 2 years daily, never drifted it.
Hmm.
Never had angle kit on it, had stock suspension, put some coilovers on it. That was it. I would drive it to car shows. I was currently going through college, so I didn't have any money at all. And that's what it was. So I started drifting officially like this year, 5 years ago. And what it would have started in was that S13 with an RB25, pushing around 280 to 300 horsepower, give or take. You want to stay at the wheels, probably 250. Like people over exaggerate what these engines actually had.
Yeah.
That's around what it was. If you up the boost 270 without a tune, you're not going to get much more than that. So
Yeah.
that's what I started with. Cable handbrake, and yeah, it worked okay. It was no angle kit again. This is kind of when I started. Actually, no, I would have had modified knuckles at that point for sure. So just modified knuckles, wheels were rubbing and stuff like when I was getting a lot of lock. So then I would have changed and made one of the arms curved so that it cleared, and that's when the progression started. Was slowly from there. But like drifting on a track, going to top drift days and stuff 5 years ago is when it like officially started. Before then, it
Hmm.
was just kind of I was actually modifying stuff for people before I was really drifting myself, and that was because I had the engineering background and the understanding of what needed to happen to make it better. But as far as I was just too busy, so Anyways, that was my first chassis. I then LS swapped that black car, which is what you would have
That's what I
remembered.
thought. Yeah. Okay.
But I put a 5.3 in it, like truck engine
Right.
with a truck intake
Yeah.
and with a Z33 transmission with an adapter plate.
Okay.
And like this thing was not tuned at all. I flashed the ECU, I got into it, I took the VATs off of it, I bumped up the rev limiter, and I blew up like three of these engines. So that's where I was kind of starting. And this car wasn't overbuilt, like stock diff, stock like a Z33 transmission, and a 5.3 LS. I was mostly going for what can I do cheaply and reliably to have fun, and
and
that was it. That was
and
the
get
answer.
seat time. Yeah.
So then from there, I then probably 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. I don't remember the timeline. It's been a while. So let's just say 5 years ago, my brother and I actually built an LQ9 6-liter iron block, higher compression, better heads, whatever. It made 405 wheel horsepower on a dyno. Now this car was getting a little more serious. I got a Jericho 4-speed dog box. Traded up all kinds of parts, trading work now, doing more fabrication stuff. This is when I would have started posting on Instagram, and people were like, wow, you're a really good welder and stuff like that. Now I have a 405 horsepower S13. I've got a 4-speed Jericho in it, and we're ready to party. Like this thing is now as reliable as it gets. The iron block, you just screams all day. I started winning basically every competition I was going in with this chassis. I don't know if you were there, even going against Riley Sexsmith and
Yep.
Dave Briggs at Cayuga when they were there. So like competitively, I still wasn't at their level of driving, but the car held up, and we ended up winning. So it was that was kind of like the TSN turning point was that year when
The TSN.
so we got the engine. We 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 have like I was okay at driving. We had the engine that had a decent amount of horsepower, and the chassis wasn't breaking, and it was reliable. And I was definitely running like early versions of the Mantis kit at that point, because I was getting crazy amounts of angle. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So we were probably on our version 2 or 3 or whatever on the S chassis stuff. And so yeah, so I didn't overbuild my first car, that's for sure. But I did take a fairly fast progression
Yeah.
through suspension upgrades and stuff, and
But you
that's
had
because I
that
just did
knowledge
it
because,
myself.
yeah, exactly. You had that knowledge base, so it's fairly easy.
Well, I would drive it and I'd be like, well, this is dumb. Like this
Way
shouldn't
better.
behave this way. I could make it behave better. So then I would just do that. And I remember like I was an absolute nobody going to these drift events. Like I remember guys like Matt Acott and Dylan Sharp. Like
Yeah.
these guys have been around for a little while in the local scene, drifting at Top Drift and Drift Ops and all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And like I remember Matt like asking me about angle kits. Dylan was asking me about products. They were all very skeptical. They were like, "Who is this guy?
I mean,
He's just another guy modifying stuff. Like he's
yeah.
gonna come and then he's gonna go." And that just wasn't the case. But they like everyone would see it over time. And then now, if I'm at the track,
You
like
getting mobbed.
it's a totally different um, yeah, it's totally different. Like
Yeah.
it's how it happened in a fairly fast course, and it's great. Like it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Reflecting on it, it's pretty sweet.
The last time you and I saw each other, I think it was back in August, and it was like you and I were trying to have like a conversation. It was like, I don't know, every 30, 45 seconds, it was just somebody coming, hey man, yeah. Like that does have to be a good feeling to go from that relative nobody with an idea to like the dude at the track that everybody's trying to chat to and get
Well,
tips from and shit.
I remember being super intimidated by the drivers that had cars that were semi to full built, and thinking like I couldn't even talk to them. Like they're so hardcore. Wow, they got an enclosed trailer. Like I
Dude,
came here on a dolly, and it's like I'm the guy that people are intimidated of, but they shouldn't. Like I'm just
yeah,
saying you shouldn't be, especially in drifting. Like it's totally different than what typical motorsports behavior is. Like if you're looking at a high level driver like Frederick Oswald, for example, at SEMA, easiest guy to talk to on the
Super
planet.
super great guy. Yeah, and
Like,
he'll hang out and shoot the shit with you like he's your next door neighbor.
so when you're thinking like of that way, I know everyone is, because that's exactly how I thought. Now the sport is further developed than it was, but
Mm-hmm.
like I wasn't watching FD. I didn't know these drivers, so like that's the other reason why. But um, yeah, it's
I
a cool
was
dynamic.
Yeah, I was super nervous like even before I met Riley. Like it was like I was like, oh, so I'm gonna go talk to Riley Sexsmith. Like hope he likes me. I
Big
don't make a
deal,
fool of
yeah.
myself. And then it was like, yeah, what a year later, I'm fucking him and I are road tripping, across North America. But yeah,
Hmm.
there should be no intimidation there. No one should ever be afraid to ask questions or to say just to say hi or anything else. Like it's always appreciated. I don't know. I have a modicum of the level of fame that you do, I guess, in a grand scheme of things. But even for me, the odd person comes like, "Hey, man, like, great podcast last week." I'm always still just like, "Oh, like somebody actually fucking listened." Like these, there are
Yeah,
people, yeah, there are faces behind the orders and the questions and the emails and the
there
comments.
are,
Yeah, there's
there
real
are,
people
and
there.
that's the coolest thing that happened actually was, this guy probably doesn't even realize how cool it was, but I went to I went to SEMA, and while I was there, I was met all kinds of guys. Like I was just said, Frederick Osbo, Ryan Turk, and I was talking with these guys for hours. Like I talked to Ryan
Great
Turk for
guys.
a couple hours.
Turk's fucking awesome. Awesome guy to shoot the shit with.
So in talking with guys like that, basically I was like, oh, I can talk to like anybody now. Like I talked to them as if it was nothing. Like I just saw him. He was sitting on his cell phone at one of the booths. I was like, hey man, what's up? Like I big fan. Introduced myself. He never heard of my business. Obviously, he heard about it there when I told him, and now
Yeah.
I'm sure he's seen it,
Oh, I'm sure.
being an FD, because I know that like Trips HQ guys and all them have
They
talked to
push the
them. And
brand big.
so, being at SEMA, I met. We went to the Grid Life party, and that's where basically you see every YouTuber,
Yeah.
every name, everybody that is somebody was at the Grid Life party.
Yeah.
And when I was at the Grid Life party, a guy came up to me and was like, oh, I'm so excited to see you. Like, I can't believe I'm actually meeting you. And I'm like, what's going on here? This was Jimmy Oaks, if you know who that is. He's got a big YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
friends with Adam LZ, um, likes to BMX, likes to build cars, likes to do a lot of cool stuff. He was excited to meet me. And I'm like, what's your name? And he was like, oh, I'm Jimmy Oaks. Like, I'm like, you are excited to meet me. That doesn't make any sense. But he's followed me for long enough to know
Oh, that's
that like
cool.
he saw the progression of my page mostly, and then all the stuff that we do and everything else, and he was like super pumped to meet me, because we had like he liked to comment on my stuff, and I would always respond to him. Like,
Yeah.
um the funny thing with me is I'm usually unaware, like I'm very unaware of people's statuses, because I feel like, people's statuses aren't necessarily a representation of how, um,
Down to earth they
better of a
are.
person they are. I don't
Yeah.
think they're any better. I think they're just doing something. Like if we're gonna just compare how good somebody is at acting versus how good I would be at welding, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
there's no difference in performance. They're just in an entertainment.
Yeah.
Um,
They're
that's
just
just
there's
their job.
more
They're just
people
they're
seeing them.
just
Yeah. That's it.
exactly. So are these people superhumans? Not even in the slightest. Are they in a in a like, is their job description basically to be known by the most people possible in order to make money? Yes. And they're good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Are they better at that than I am at what I'm good at? No, we're probably about the same. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of anybody as like super special, where other people like fanboy or fangirl over them. So like Jimmy would message me all the time, and like Chris, my one guy that works for me, he would be like, dude, like Jimmy Oaks is messaging you and you like replying like it's not even a big deal. I'm like, I didn't look at like how many followers he had.
Yeah. And he
So
doesn't.
you go and look, he's got, I don't know what it's at right now, 200,000 on Instagram or more or
Mm-hmm.
something. YouTube subscribers, I think he's over 500,000 or something like that. So yeah, big deal. Like this guy's a big deal, and like this happens all the time. Like the guy that runs Hoonigan, um, has been talking to me recently over the last couple of weeks, and I'm responding to him. Like he's like, "Hey, do you think we could work together on a kit?" And I'm like, like, yeah, like send me your portfolio to my email and I'll give it a look. And then Cam, my one welder, comes over. Dude, that guy runs Hoonigan. Like he runs the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, really? That's pretty sweet.
And it's like
So
I
like,
just asked him for I just asked him for a
so
fucking
I
yeah.
I feel a bit silly in terms of that, but it's like I don't, yeah, I just don't, like they're all like they're way cooler than me. So it's I should maybe look at their pages and stuff and realize who I'm talking to. But for the most part, I'm talking to so many people, I don't look at their profiles ever. I
Yeah.
just answer them. I give them the basic send your sponsorship proposal to this email address and be on your way. And sure enough, humbly, most of the time, these guys that are big, they they do it and
Well,
they've
they
got the
I
portfolio
was
and
gonna
they're
say
ready to go.
they've
Like,
got the document ready to go, and it's just like,
yeah,
hey, I need
so
you to send this to this, right?
that's what I'm looking for to be like that's what I'm looking for anyways, to be to get
Yeah.
rid of the bullshitters, to get rid of basically anytime you ask somebody to email you, that gets rid of 70-80%
Yeah.
of the people that aren't serious, like
Yeah.
right off the bat. So emailing is like that 15% inconvenience that people don't want to do, so then they just don't do it, which is great because
Because it just
then I
it
don't want to
skims
deal
the
with them,
fat off the top. Yeah.
because then that it's the perfect filter. So anyways, of course they've got it ready to go. So then yeah, the
And I bet you it
it
looks fucking
progresses.
stunning.
Well, I'd hope so. They have a very very successful channel.
Yeah,
So
I've seen a few of their videos.
and they've branched, like I don't even understand the network, but how it's branched with Donut Media and all the other channels that kind of just all revolve around, like I don't even know if Hoonigan's the center, but like they all kind of related and they all kind of work with each other,
Yeah,
and
it's
Chair Slayer's
always
in there with his pages and stuff, and like it's all
it's
very
all who you
connected and
know. It's such a small community.
yeah,
They have to
yeah,
be, and like people don't realize that like people move from company to company to company. Like sponsorship reps fucking are famous for like sales reps from like one company be like, oh hey, here's my new number because I'm going from this wheel company to that turbo company. But the year
mm-hmm.
before that, he was at this bearing company or something. Like it, it's such a connection based system for sure, and the media is no different. A lot of the race service guys were like donut guys, and before that, Network A guys. Like if you remember Network A,
Yeah,
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 it's a movement of people, and some get left behind and new ones join. But like, there's a core progression from Network A all the way to race service now.
yeah.
But
So it's awesome that going to SEMA and having
yeah,
like
oh, it's huge.
our following isn't anything spectacular. Like we have a good following on Facebook, we have a good following on Instagram. Our YouTube channel is, I don't know if you've been
It's
watching how
growing
the
fast,
really fast,
really
like
fast.
really fast, which for a while I was like Drift HQ's channel grew really quickly and I was like, how'd you do it? And then they, like, basically there is no answer, you just got to
You
keep
just do it.
pumping the
You just,
content.
yeah,
Luckily we've gotten into a nice tutorial where you're getting an average of 3 to 4 thousand views within the first couple weeks.
mm,
That's, it's not great, it's not bad,
it's
it's
good.
really
It's
great.
good.
It's really good for a channel with as little subscribers we have. So
Mm,
but then we have one video that we're averaging 2,000 views a day right now.
mm.
It's the roll how to build a roll cage video. Luckily this video is an hour and 12 minutes long, so there's like
The view duration is insane.
20, yeah, there's like 20 ads that are going to play. Like we just became monetized like last week,
Holy shit,
actually no, on Monday, and we've made $135
crazy.
just on this roll cage video.
Man, just in all honesty, just if you can, just pump it back into the production value. Just keep upping that, and things are just gonna keep rolling.
The goal is not to make the goal is not to make money off of YouTube. That wasn't even the goal at
No,
all. It
no,
was like we're going to become, the goal for our YouTube channel is to be relevant, up to date, and just like if you type in FDF in any search engine,
you need it there.
you will get multiple options. You're going to get video options, you're going to get websites, you're going to get pictures,
Mhm.
and yeah, like you're going to just be like, wow, there's so much, there's pages of stuff related to FDF. That's why we're doing the YouTube channel. If I can afford in 5 years to pay for the cost of my videographer, I'll be happy. But
Yeah,
I'm not even having that as one of the as one of the expectations of it, but I think it's realistic if
Yeah,
we continue
I
on
agree.
this pace.
I think the big one that people forget about, and this is one that like I sell a lot of and talk a lot about, is like videos that cut down on wasted time. So like I've been doing some how-to videos for a racetrack to like teach people how to properly drag race, like track etiquette, things like that. And people are like, oh, that's kind of silly. And it's like, no, because the amount of phone calls about stupid questions are reduced. So now a secretary can focus more on her job, or people showing up to drag racing that have to turn around because they didn't stage properly, they fucked something up, or they've wrecked the surface of the track, or went through the water pit without drag slicks. Like,
yeah, it's the same thing as getting a Q&A on your website,
yeah,
commonly or frequently asked
frequently
questions.
asked questions, but like in video format, it's just a better way to deliver a lot of that information. If you can make it entertaining or at least bearable to watch, you can.
Bearable to watch is key for
Yeah,
sure, just
yeah,
because like growing up and going through the schooling system, I would say the way that I learn is not the way that we're
that they're
taught. So
teaching.
like
Yeah.
how, and like I feel like my kids are identical to myself, which makes sense because
Mm-hmm.
they're mine. Um, the way that I would learn is like if I'm in any hands-on course, I'm getting 100%. It doesn't even matter if it is math, science, physics, gym, whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm using my hands with it, like I'm gonna pass with flying colors. If I gotta read a book and then write an essay on points that they why did so and so do this for what reason, I'm failing that
Yeah, it's fucked.
100%. like I'm not doing that. So visually, hands on, and like I need real life examples. So like
Mm-hmm.
when I did my caster video, what can everybody reference, like like a fridge cart or like a luggage when you're pulling it in the
Yeah.
through the airport. Like that's caster, it's following you because it has caster.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Now,
why it's
now
following
push
you.
it. Yeah, now push it and see what happens.
So these examples are like how I would be able to have learned it if I didn't know it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to figure out to explain to people. Um, Finding the real world example that isn't a car that they do use all the time, and then putting it into words and on a video visually with my display, and then delivering it. Now it's tough. Like I'll write down notes, and I could, like you and I could talk about a certain characteristic of front suspension geometry, and I could articulate and explain and pause and think and do all that. That's fine. Like I can think about something and then say it. But when you're shooting a video, like it all just changes. It just goes
Mm-hmm.
out the window. You're like, wow, why did I just say the
Uh,
offset of a wheel backwards to
you
what I know that it actually is, or something like stupid like that,
have you looked
where
at
it
writing
just,
scripts? Like, have you thought about writing out a proper script and using like they're very cheap teleprompters. The hard part is learning how to present with a teleprompter without making it look like you're reading
yeah,
from a
no,
teleprompter.
yeah,
Okay,
there's no, oh yeah, I haven't looked into it, and I feel like, so
immediately it's just not going to happen.
these videos luckily are not taking me very long, and I'm not struggling with it as much as I'm describing. I'm just saying
Yeah,
when I visualize what I'm thinking of in my head and how I understand it, it's what Elon Musk has talked about. When what we're doing, we're losing a translation, or we're losing a lot of information in translation. So I'm thinking of the concept.
mm-hmm.
Now I have to download the concept into our English language, and then I need to deliver it to you. You are going to then upload it in the way that you understand our language, which is different than how I understand it.
Yeah,
And there is going to be 20% loss in information. 10% is lost when I downloaded my thought into my language. I lose specifics. I didn't use the right pronouns. Like I miss something that is key to understanding it as well as I can imagine it.
yeah,
And then when you upload it, you do the same thing. So it could be different than 10%, but that's essentially what's happening, especially when you're making a video. So it's tough. That's why Elon Musk wants to make the
Neuralink. I was
Neuralink.
just going to say, is this a Neuralink sales pitch? Is that what I'm
Yeah.
getting here?
Well, I can see where he's going like
Yeah,
with it, but it's when you're trying to when you're trying to deliver a very, very complex idea, which would happen in SpaceX and electric vehicles and hovering cars, you're gonna like these ideas can't be put into words because you're gonna miss something.
Hmm.
Like it can be obviously, but with very long and very complex language, and only certain people will be able to understand it and
Hmm.
interpret it. Whereas with his idea of a Neuralink is you could just like, here's my idea and I'm giving it to you,
Yeah,
which
boom,
is
there it is.
insane. Which is insane to
It's
think
scary as
that,
fuck. I love
yeah,
it, but it scares the shit out of me because
I
it's a
don't,
weird place sometimes.
I don't see how that is. It's going to be very interesting future
Well,
for
his
us, and I
his
think we're
his
living
thought
in
is
it.
it's
I
all
think
just data, right? It's like we just need to figure out the conduit from data A to data B and cut out any of the translation in between.
the yeah, like the amount of differences in the neurologic firings of your brain, whatever it's called.
It's
Like I don't know
infinite. Yeah,
the
it's
language. So when I think of a thought, and then when you think of a thought, it's hundreds of millions of different signals triggering in different parts of the brain, and then there's chemicals involved with like emotions, and then you play into the fact that the way that you think is based off of even the diet that you have.
right.
How can we how can we possibly say that a Neuralink is going to work when if you don't eat a banana, you're gonna think about it differently? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
like
it's
I'm
super
allergic to
complicated.
fruit, so like my relationship with an apple is very different than yours.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
I
when
know you get
when
it.
you when you get into that topic, like I'm it's not off topic because I'm currently trying to give this information to people,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt that I was struggling a bit to give the idea as well as I wanted to deliver it. I'm delivering it well considering the comments and people's feedback. They're saying I'm doing it well. But it is still, when I'm done filming, I'm like, damn, I wanted to do it like I didn't say it how I thought of it originally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because there's loss of translation and there's nothing you can do about it. And I know Elon struggles with it because if you've listened to his podcast, the guy doesn't speak very well.
No,
Like he
the
doesn't.
long pauses always get me. Where like you can tell he is really just like bouncing this around. Like I
He's
have to
trying to
frame
put
this.
it into English and he just can't. And
Yeah,
I like the other problem is I don't think his vocabulary is that vast. Like it's obviously he has a lot of terminology that we have no idea what it is, but I don't think he has a vast vocabulary where he knows that word that he's trying to say.
or the word just doesn't exist yet, or may not
Sure,
exist in English.
the thought, but the main point of the argument is that you can't put some thoughts into a language for you to upload it and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Joe Rogan oftentimes struggles with grasping his very ideas because Elon just didn't say it well enough because
Mm-hmm.
he can't. It's like when he says something and you're like, huh? And he's literally thinking to himself, yeah, like I thought it right, but I didn't say it right. So it's it's something that I struggle with on obviously a much smaller scale.
Yeah,
Just covering basics of suspension geometry, which I'm sure Elon Musk has a vast understanding of designing Teslas. Um, so I'm sure he's totally fine in that department. Although he did make the cars weigh like 5,500 pounds, which has a terrible effect on ball joints, tires, and they blow really, really quickly.
on Teslas,
So yeah,
it's a problem, huh?
yeah, like your tire wear is insane. Like 4 year lifespan, not on a Tesla. You're talking 1 year lifespan. So
Really?
you're using the same
I know someone
tire.
who just bought one, like literally just bought one.
So this is coming from a mechanics perspective of somebody that has replaced tires on Teslas, and they're like, we just did this a year ago, and we're doing it again. And it's like the ball joints on a 5,500 pound car should be the size of a truck's ball joints, but they're not. So it's like things like that. I mean, every manufacturer has its flaws. That's the thing that's to say about it. But the other like deep topic that you could like, there's a lot of deep stuff you could go into, but it's almost like nobody has figured anything out to 100% ever, like mathematics or 99.99 continued
Yeah.
accurate, but nobody has it figured out 100%. And this is very relevant to drifting when you see the development in the way the chassis is built, the way the drivers drive, and the way that the manufacturers of the suspension components make the parts. Like we went from stiff coilovers and low ride heights to long travel, soft coilovers with larger sway bars. Like because we understand dynamically how to achieve more grip and how to go faster while in drift, and we're changing and changing and changing. I bet you we're only at like 80%. Like we're not even like we are having this understanding and we know what needs to happen, but like think about it. We need to reduce. So to talk about getting the most available grip out of a front tire, let's say that you needed the most available grip. Let's avoid the topic of drivers that like to scrub their front wheels and drift with slipping the front because that's their style. That's fine. Love it. It's totally fine. It's aggressive. They got to throw it. The harder you throw it, the better. It's totally fine. But let's say we're trying to achieve the most efficient and fastest way to drift possible.
Yeah.
We need to get the most grip out of the controlling wheel in the front in order to control the amount of traction we have in the rear so that we can steer the drift. Because if you don't have that grip up front, you're going to understeer, wash out, and it's not going to work. You're going to hit a limit where you can't drift faster than that anymore, where it's just a out of control slide or whatever. So throughout the steering axis travel range, you have a point where you're at -6 camber driving straight. And then you turn your wheel, the wheel flattens out to 0 camber. At this 30-degree mark, you have an excellent grip level. This is where you want to ride and be at, but then you continue to steer, and now you're falling to +4 camber dynamically, whatever it might be. Let's just say it's +4. You've just lost that traction again. So there's only one spot in the steering axis where you have the maximum amount of grip, and all the other spots are falling off of the graph. So the graph went up as you're steering the wheel, you've hit your maximum grip, and then it falls right back down again. We haven't figured it out. Is there a suspension system that dynamically changes everything to keep that wheel straight the entire way through? If it's FD legal, probably not. So we may never get there. But if you were to make the perfect suspension setup, we have not even come close to like what the possibility would be. When you look at how in the early 2000s, these cars had electronic rear steering and toe adjustments and stuff. And then you've got guys like Sasha, who is developing and constantly building that hybrid 350Z that he time attacks.
Psycho.
So you're looking at, he's pushing the limits of what's possible given the suspension that he has. So I've talked to him before where he wanted to have a linear actuator basically changing his toe setting in the rear based on his throttle input, based on his weight balance, and he's measuring the suspension's travel on every corner. Like he's collecting all the data, and he wants to adjust his toe based on what he's getting back through his Motec system. And in doing that, he's surpassing that where everybody works to get to the best handling suspension within the limits of a fixed linkage. And then he wants to go beyond there by dynamically changing.
That's crazy.
Another hour's gone.
Yeah, dude. You're crushing this. I do have to piss super bad. I'm down to keep going. You want to keep going?
Well, I mean, it's like almost 1 o'clock. I gotta go to bed. I gotta get the kids up in the morning.
We'll jump out just to finish it up. But I'll throw one more up quick, and then that way you can at least wrap up everybody. Jesus, we gotta do more of these. 100%. What's up, guys? Why do I keep saying this? There we go. Story. No. Oh my God, I'm failing at this so bad. Live. I've never done this on Instagram for this long. I'm curious what's gonna happen.
What's the? I didn't get any kind of
Oh, I'm just doing it now. Sorry. Uh, should have a notification now. Yep.
negative.
Waiting for FDF is what it's saying. I don't know what
I
you
see
did.
nothing.
I could try one
I
more.
see nothing.
I will try one more. Jesus.
I see your live. I see your live feed.
All right. Send request. Waiting for FDF.
There it is.
All right, we had to do it again. Instagram people. All right, for anybody I'll get them in a second, but they'll slowly file back in. Brent Stratton, though, he's been hanging out. He's trying to keep up with you. He's looking for your tips.
Hey, that guy's been around longer than I have.
Brent, I have talked about him. I don't know how many times. Hopefully, he's still here. What's up, buddy? He is like,
there he is.
He is such a fucking consistent driver. That green car needs to go in a goddamn museum. The amount of laps that thing has fucking put down at Shannonville is unprecedented. There is no car that has put in more laps at Shannonville than that car. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, you're probably right. I think you're absolutely right.
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that he lives right there. So
we were just touching on the topic that the level that we have been able to achieve in developing anything, and I think this applies to like literally everything. We're not there yet. Like we haven't been there, and we are going to get there. When you think of the growth from when we originally started developing parts, like the most significant time I think we're all living in, everyone watching the video and that we're living in, when you go from 90s to 2021, and then you go from 60s to 90s, there you see a large advancement in vehicles, but not so much technology. From 90s to today, wow,
the
has there
technology
ever
growth
been
is incredible.
We're living in a time where we went from 20% of understanding and developing and building to 80-90%, and this goes across the board with automotive and every other aspect of technology. Basically, when you go from the only thing you've ever seen hover before was a full-blown helicopter to now every single person can fly a drone with their cell phone within a matter of years, and the technology is so cheap that for $30 you could have one with a camera.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
And
like,
an
what's
incredible
going on?
camera as well. Like the
Like,
Mavic
what's
Pro
going
2s.
on?
Yeah.
So we're on a crazy trajectory where we're headed, and it's pretty exciting. But to stay on topic with like the vehicles aspect of it, the suspension and what Sasha was doing, for example, is like surpassing what what we're at our max, and he's trying to surpass it basically. And obviously Formula One is past it. Like they are, like, I was watching a video on um, it was a car that didn't need a sway bar, but it had no roll in the body whatsoever because of the way that the linkages were set up. It had dampeners and countering dampeners that would basically, as the vehicle applied more load to it, it would fight back in the opposite direction with an equal amount of force.
Jesus.
Using different, like I'm telling you, this linkage would go up to a pivot point, and then it would go over across to the other side of the vehicle, grab another point, go through another pivot, and then back up again to the same side. And the way that it would work, rolling, did not need a sway bar, had no roll, the least amount of roll of any chassis. It was being developed by Mercedes. The other thing that they're doing is putting 4 ball joints on these cars rather than 2. So if you have an upper wishbone, or if you have a double wishbone suspension, upper control arm and a lower control arm, you've generally got a single lower control arm ball joint and an upper ball joint. This is great. You're going to have a scrub radius. It's really easy to define and really easy to measure and all this. But what European cars, the 350 did it just on the lower portion, but you have 2 ball joints on the top and 2 ball joints on the bottom with a space between, giving you a 0 rolling center as the arms are, as your wheel here is turning. You have two pivot points that are oscillating like this, and they're changing position. This creates a zero scrub where the wheel is actually dynamically like it's moving forward while it's turning, and then it comes back, and then it goes back out, comes this way, and then sucks back in again. So the wheel isn't swinging around
on a single point. Yeah.
The wheel is moving to turn forward and backwards while turning. This removes scrub radius effectively, and it handles really well. The only problem is you have 4 ball joints to change rather than 2.
Do you think drifting will head to that? Like, do you think that's going to be the next development? Is everybody swapping over to that style of system?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I'm just saying that if we were to, like, I don't think much is going to change with drifting. We're going to further develop our kits. We're going to better the kinematics, and we're going to continue to improve within a limit, because you got to use this factory suspension pickup points as well. That's probably the biggest hold up for going any further, because when we develop an angle kit, we're like, wow, I really wish the steering rack was like here instead, like the Corvette, for example. It's like in front of the engine's crank pulley, and you can't move it back. You can't move it down. You can't do anything with it. So like, it's there. That's just where it is. It'd be way better if it wasn't there, because it wouldn't over center, and we could get more angle and so on and so forth. So what I was saying was, if we could generate a computer animated perfect drift car with the understanding and principles that we're going off of right now, it could be like quite a bit better in terms of getting a full range of travel with the most amount of grip throughout the travel range. There would be things that we would be wanting to change dynamically to create that. And I don't think it's going to change, because we're using production cars, and that's the requirement for
drifting.
Most. Yeah.
Unlimited spec.
And we got to think of cost too. Like, nobody wants to spend $1 million in developing the perfect drift car.
Not yet, they don't.
Yeah, there's no point. So, but like you are saying, Formula One has been around for so long. They're at that point. Like, their budgets are $800 million a year.
It's insane.
So they're at that point where their data logging and their control of that vehicle, and they're looking for that 1 to 5% mechanical advantage that we're talking about in drifting. They're looking for that because they need that. That's how close those cars are mechanically, they need that advantage to get over the competition. And if the team can't figure it out, like when you watch that amazing series,
the one on Netflix, Drive to Survive.
They go deep into the team's struggle with changing the setup of the car to make it better. Constantly they're changing it, and it's making it worse because they made one minute change, and then it changed it beyond its threshold of where it was advancing the performance, and then it goes back on the other side of the curve and falls back down again. And then hopefully they only changed one thing at a time so that they can reverse it and try something else. But oftentimes they're changing several things, and then they forget or don't know which one they fixed. And I'm talking about this as if I know. I don't, but like, that's what's happening. It's literally humans trying to figure out the best physics for going really, really fast. And it's impressive that we're able to get this far, and as far as we are. And especially when you're looking at like the Mars landing. Was that yesterday?
Yeah, dude, that was cool. I made my kids like sit down and watch it, like just to understand what was happening.
So it's really like, we're in a super significant time. I say it all the time. I wig out with people and they don't get it. Like, they just are like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, no, like, you don't understand how significant your current time
era, time on Earth is.
Yeah,
we're on the precipice.
Yeah, like, I mean, we're in the point where anybody can have an opinion, and the majority of people shouldn't, but everyone gets one. So
that was too good. That was too good. Well, dude, I think like my bladder may actually explode. I managed to hold it
yeah,
together.
I mean, you probably should have gotten up and
just
I
like
could have just
you could have
talked
just
to the
kept going.
people here.
I was too fascinated. I had to listen. But it is like 1 o'clock in the morning. You and I both have children that'll wake us up incredibly early.
Oh yeah, we're getting up at 7 o'clock, and the ATV's got to be running because I just got a 4-wheeler for the kids. So they're
nice. I think we're going tobogganing tomorrow, so I will be woken up with like, okay, the sun's up.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's hit the road.
I'll probably do the same. Similar.
Yeah. Cool, man.
But yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think we definitely need to do at least 3 more of these, all 3 hours apiece, and we'll just cut out snippets and then just post that as a YouTube video, and you're good to go. But yeah, I think even doing these, I think you really should start your own podcast with other people, either just in the suspension world or something along those lines, or engineers, or just talk about manufacturing, because I think we could keep going on this. You need to meet my buddy Andrew, who he works for Magna as a production engineer. Mm-hmm. You guys would get along for sure. It's his whole fucking life, right? So
yeah.
Except for his are latches. Yeah. He makes actually, I don't know if he's at a latch factory anymore, but latches are very interesting. A lot of crazy kinematics in that. Anyways.
Oh, 100%. The most interesting thing, quick little
here we go.
Thing is because I used to work at a company called InSale where we made blister packs, and I actually designed the production machine that formed and produced them and put glue on them. I built it, programmed it, designed it, made it, the whole bit. The funniest thing was the older equipment that they had there it was like the 70s, and it was still working fine and made them tons of money. And the buttons that you had to push that would actually do something to the machine rather than PLCs and IOs and stuff like that, it was actually a linkage that went through this entire machine. When you push this button,
and it physically moves something.
Linkage, physical, not like a cable or anything. Like this was like plastic linkages that were like cast and forged in the 70s, and little ball joints. It was insane. And like you push this button, you hear like the most satisfying click, and like it actually like changes something on the machine. You're like, this is so much cooler than a PLC and IO and programming. I was like, the guy that made this is so much smarter he's not smarter than the guy that made the PLC and the IO system, but he's smarter than the guys that programmed them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy went somewhere that made this. Like they said, you were in charge of making sure that this button does this. And this guy was like, he just went to town on it and
just fucking did it. Just did it. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy was sick. I don't know who he was.
We should find him. Let's make that the goal, is to find this guy.
But to make things work in the 70s took a smarter person collectively to do it, versus now where you have just a few amount of smart people, and then all we need to do is just program these PLCs to do stuff. So before we had a lot of smart people that you had to be smart in order to operate basic equipment, whereas now we just have a few that design the equipment to be like really user friendly with a touch screen interface. So the dynamic of what we're seeing is interesting. How you see the intelligence of people, it probably hit a peak, and now anyways, we're done. That's it. That's too much.
All right, I got you. All right, dude. Yeah. I'm assuming everybody can find you FDF pretty much everywhere now, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty much everywhere. So sure. That's good, man. Well, thank you again.
Smokey, you missed it. 3.5 hours. You're coming in a bit late, buddy. We're just about
to just get in. Smokey drift. Yeah, sorry, dude. Yeah. Well,
he was one of the first kits. He was one of the first guys to buy one of our kits in the US. If you're interested.
That's cool. Yeah. I'll definitely have everything up on the actual like Piston Head podcast. It'll be up on all the channels. I'll get the video link over and stuff like that too. So this will be immortalized. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Everybody on Instagram, thank you, dude. Have a good one. I will definitely be talking to you soon.
Sounds good. See you later, man.
Thanks, man.
Peace.